Good morning, everyone. Good morning to the regular session. Because we're doing the budget, I thought, for some reason there, I skipped and thought it was a special session. It's always special when we go through the budget. So I'm calling to order the regular session of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. We're also sitting as all special taxing districts. This is May 21st, 2018. This is 9 a.m. And first item on the agenda is an executive session, which I will postpone. I will delay until the end of the meeting. There's no reason to keep all of you busy people here for longer than necessary. So we're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, which today will be led by Supervisor Porches.
Can you please join me in the pledge? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You know, I don't know if it's as obvious to the rest of the supervisors as it is for me, but there's a lot of people in here I'd like to acknowledge, but there are going to be some sections of the agenda that I'll have the opportunity. So just give me a couple of minutes, I'll get to them. I know that there's a lot of guests in here that we will acknowledge, and we will acknowledge them at the appropriate part in the agenda. Now, having said that, the first item in the agenda is actually called to the public. Now, call to the public is held for the public's benefit to allow individuals to address issues within the board's jurisdiction. Board members may not discuss items that are not specifically identified in the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to Arizona revised statutes, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to criticism, or scheduling the matter for further discussion and decision at a future date. Now, I do have some what do you call this? Speaker cards. I haven't had them in my way. Speaker forms. It says so in the form here. Some speaker forms, but I think two of them are for CDBG and one of them is for the budget. So I guess I'll wait until then to call upon you. Okay. All right. Our first item in the agenda is presentations, proclamations. I'll leave the call to the public. I was leave the call to the public open. So never did I expect Susan to come up.
Great. Well, this is a special occasion. I wanted to take an opportunity to recognize the people that were involved with the National Association of Counties recognizing the Yuma County with 2 achievement awards. The awards honor innovative, effective county government programs that enhance services to our residents. I would like to recognize 3 key staff members for their work in earning these awards. First, Shannon Gunderman, Administrative Services Director, Paul Melcher, Deputy County Administrator, and Lisa Mendez, Assistant Library Director. First, I know Shannon Gunderman's out of town, but I'd like for Paul Melcher to come up to be recognized for this program. NACO awarded our program titled Enterprise Risk Management, Addressing Uncertainty and Improving Decision-Making in the category of Risk and Emergency Management. Enterprise Risk Management has been an effective tool that has helped the county save money, allocate resources more efficiently, attain strategic objectives, and improve interdepartmental and intergovernmental communication. So, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And Lisa, our Assistant Library Director. The Yuma County Library District San Luis Branch has been recognized for its program entitled Hispanic Heritage Art Exhibit in the category of libraries. The library's 2017 Hispanic Heritage Art Exhibition had almost 1,700 visitors, which broke all previous records. 34 artists were featured and 164 works of art were displayed. As a direct result, an artists club has been organized, which meets weekly. This is especially helpful in the city of San Luis, where there are no art galleries. The exhibit also encourages patrons to visit the library for a community event and to learn about books, resources, and programs. Thank you, Lisa. The National Association of Counties will officially recognize these award winners at its 2018 annual conference and exposition, July 13th through 16th in Nashville, Tennessee, but I wanted to share that with the public today. Thank you.
All right. You should have stayed there. You're next on the item, the agenda anyway. Well, I was going to do something else, but. All right, the next item in the agenda. Oh, Jesus. The expression is because the last, they don't look like the public to me, but But then
Mr.
again,
Chairman, members of the board, I promise you this is from the public.
I've heard that from
You better
attorneys
set the timer
before.
because I threw my notes out on the way.
Put the timer on. Put the timer on.
I'll watch it. I can
Attorney.
do it. I'm here today because this is the end of Child Abuse Awareness Month. And if any of you were at the Victim Rights Dinner earlier this month, we had a dynamic speaker. A lady spoke. She gave us a message of hope. But as a child out in, I believe it was Santa Ana, she was attending school, and she tells the story of after school, she goes to see one of her teachers finally and mentions, I'd like to take some more classes. She's about 10 or 12 years old at this time. And the teacher's flag raises up and she starts asking why. And it turns out that this child was being touched in a bad way by her mom's boyfriend. That's an indicator of abuse. And I had some notes, but then I read the paper this morning, and if everyone read it, the front page top fold is our numbers are up. And some people think that's a bad thing when your numbers go up. I think it means we're catching people. And I'm here to talk about our community, our Children's Justice Project, and one of the people behind it that really makes it happen, and that's Chip Snyder. Chip's been with Amberley's Place for 11 years. The Children's Justice Project, we go, myself, usually a local law enforcement agent, DCS, and Chip gets us in the door of all the schools, the hospitals, the clergy. We've even done animal control. And we talk about indicators of abuse and neglect, how to identify them, how to react to them, like this teacher did for this speaker we had earlier the month, and how to report it when necessary. Chip's been with Amberley's Place for about 11 years. He and I have been doing this project for about 11 years or more. We average about 2,000 individuals we touch a year on this training. One year we did almost 3,000. That means Chip and I have done probably about 23,000 individuals throughout his career. And I'm deeply grateful for him. I would like to offer him a certificate of appreciation, Chip.
All right,
And it's presented to Chip Snyder for years of unwavering and dedicated service to the children and families of Yuma County by raising awareness of the need to identify and address child abuse and neglect and domestic violence in all communities. And it's with great appreciation that I present this to you,
John,
Chip.
thank you so much.
I still have 32 seconds, 28 seconds left, and I just want to say how much I appreciated all that you did. I consider you a dear friend. I'm truly going to miss you when you move out of town. He's moving to Scottsdale. And Chip also sits as among other things, he also sits as a hearing officer on our high school disciplinary boards. So I will turn the mic over to
You're gonna
you.
be
That's
amazed.
all right.
I only have 4 seconds, but sorry, I'm gonna go over. I want to say thank you to John.
There
I
you
want to
go.
say thank you to the county for all the support you've given us and given to Amberley's Place. It's been a real pleasure to be able to do this and to make a difference in the life of a child. You know that old story about the starfish on the sea, and they can't save them all, but if you can save one, that's all. That's what makes a difference. It makes a difference to that person. And if we can save one child today, tomorrow, and the next day from the abuse that's going on, that makes the difference. John is a dear friend. I will miss all of you. I will miss him, but my children and grandchildren are there. And they're doing stuff, and I'm missing it. And I want to be there for it. So thank you all very much. I appreciate all the support. Thank you so much.
Anybody else from the real public? Right, I'm gonna keep this open till the end of the meeting, so we get everybody an opportunity to present their items. The next item in the agenda is presentations, proclamations, and appointments. During this segment of the agenda, board members may discuss the presentations or proclamations and may announce appointments to the Yuma County Planning and Zoning Commission, the Yuma County Board of Adjustments. No legal action will be taken. On this one, I was debating whether to actually allow the visitors from out of town to go first, because, we sort of like to do that so they can get back in town. But then I said, why don't we just let them see how it works? No, it's okay, Craig. We're going to have you first. I'm going to skip a couple of presentations to to actually go straight out to the presentation of the 2018 legislative report by Craig Sullivan, the Executive Director of the Arizona County Supervisors Association. Craig, I'm just going to take a second from your time to acknowledge the presence of our state representatives and our state senator here. Tim Dunn is here, and you know, we're so happy and proud of what you've done in the legislature since your appointment. I mean, you really hit the ground running out there, and all we get is pretty positive reviews. Charlene Fernandez, what can I say? I think Charlene was born for that position. I mean, she has done so many things, and I mean, there's almost no day that goes by that I don't hear something that you're doing something somewhere. So, you know, we appreciate that. And Lisa Tondo, you know, we've had great representation forever in the state senate, and Lisa is just continues to do that for us. So I just want to acknowledge that, because in this legislative report, a lot of the stuff that got done because of all you know, participating and making it happen. And we wanted to let you know how grateful we all are of the job you guys are doing at the legislature. You have made us all proud, and thank you very much. How you gonna go?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I fear that we just peaked, though, in terms of excitement by introducing the legislators. I'll go downhill from here, so I'll suffer by comparison. But for the record, I'm Craig Sullivan with the County Supervisors Association. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members, for giving me this opportunity. I have with me Robin Hilliard and Vanessa Shaw from my team. And what we'd like to do today is report out a little bit on some of the work that occurred at this last legislative session, specifically as it relates to the objectives that you all set as members of our board of directors. And I do want to echo the sentiment that the chairman just shared. The legislators that are in this room and the legislators that represent your area are excellent, and I owe them a great debt of gratitude as well. They are constantly available to us to hear what we're bringing to them in your interests. And what I love the most is that overwhelmingly when we visit with them, they have heard from you, and that's what really matters. Elected officials working together with elected officials to solve the issues of this district. And so I applaud all of you for the great public service that you're doing on behalf of your constituents. The PowerPoint itself is about the legislative session. I do want to talk a little bit about some of the intergovernmental activities we've been engaged to support that. But overwhelmingly, I want to talk about the budget and about the bills. But before we get into that, just for folks who are not familiar with our association, the County Supervisors Association is a collaboration of all 15 counties, and our job is to create a forum for sharing best practices among counties, as well as for engaging on an intergovernmental basis the state legislature, governmental agencies, and Congress to help you all do your job, to help promote efficient, responsive county government. All of you serve on my board of directors, and I'm very proud that, that you do, and it helps me make sure that what we're working on matters for all of you. But Mr. McLeod, I wanted to point out directly, we're grateful for the extra time you're giving us, serving in leadership, unanimously elected by your colleagues across the state to serve on our executive committee, and we're really looking forward to you serving as president.
What do you mean unanimous?
In the next year.
I might not have voted.
You weren't there.
I wasn't there.
Mr. Chairman, I think he was carrying your proxy on that day as well.
I didn't give him my proxy. So I need a recount then.
Before we get into the legislative side, just to talk about why intergovernmental engagement matters, it's pretty easy. One is that when you're doing your job here on behalf of your constituents, there are many entities that have the powers and authorities to impact your ability to do that job. Obviously, the federal government, the state legislature, state agencies, other elected officials, and the court system. And so we try to create a centralized one-stop shop to engage these interests on your behalf, because number one, it's important to protect the interests of your community before these bodies, but also these are the folks we need to collaborate with to solve problems. And so we're going to, as I mentioned, talk about the legislature, but a lot of what we did this year was building the ability to represent you in a series of work groups that were unfolding. Many of them you know very well. I was appointed to the governor's water solutions process as well as the water augmentation process to help bring a county voice to that dialogue, which, as we know, was a very significant conversation that will be ongoing but I want to make sure that you have another conduit in that pipeline. Also, I served on the regionalization task force both at AOC as well as the joint ad hoc committee that the legislature formed. And I was very grateful that Mr. Hardy from your juvenile justice function served on that as well, which really made sure that the perspective of Yuma County was at the table. And then other stakeholder groups that I am appointed to on your behalf, PSPS Advisory Committee, as well as the various management system processes that the governor's putting in place in his agency. And so we're really trying to make sure that we have a pipeline for you to share your perspective and information. So use me to that end for these various appointments that we have on your behalf. The second intergovernmental piece I wanted to point to is about data collection. We believe very strongly that we have to have the data and research to empower the ability for the counties to do their job locally and to engage on an intergovernmental basis. The data and information we have helps drive our advocacy efforts. And so this past year, we spent a lot of time putting together information that you saw, many of the documents, that helped empower our efforts. Vanessa Shaw and our team developed a lot of this information. And where we stand right now is that we have a database of 73 unique data sets of all 15 counties in various areas, revenues, expenditures. We've developed an online platform called our Data Encyclopedia, which is a very robust document that I'd encourage you to take a look at. And we used all of that information to develop 55 advocacy documents at the state and federal level. And so this is a portion of what we do that really is below sea level. It's not the tip of the iceberg, but I'm very proud of it, and so I wanted to share it with you very briefly. So moving on to the legislative side. It's the nature of county government that there are an enormous number of bills that impact your operations, and this year was no different. Of the 1,200 bills that were introduced, about 500 to 600 impacted county functions. Of those that passed, the 346 that passed, 220 of those bills impact county functions. So my team, Robin and Kristen and Brandon, they make sure they're tracking all of that to work with the lawmakers on what they mean to all of you. The budget. The budget is always our top priority, and on the left was our collateral piece we used as we were briefing legislators. We had a very complicated budget ask this year. We had a major problem that we needed to solve, the elected officials' retirement plan that had become insolvent because of prior legislative reforms and court lawsuits. That had to be addressed by court order this legislative session. We also had a legacy of recession-era cost shifts, where the state was tapping county resources to pay for state functions. So our vision was, could we get to a situation where we could get out of paying for state functions, return those dollars here locally, stabilize the EORP system, and have a win-win between the state and the counties as it's related to that. An important component of that was that we felt that all 12 rural counties continued to need additional EORP protection. And by that I mean some protection about paying the full costs of EORP. And so we had that on our platform as well. These are the results. For all 15 counties, the budget included $20 million of county general fund relief and $6 million of road relief. So that's divided up across all 15 counties. The way it came back to each county depended on how those various cost shifts were put in law. So what the budget secured for Yuma County were basically three things. Relief from the Department of Juvenile Corrections cost shift, relief from what's called the DUC pool, which is just a payment to the healthcare system, and then protection from any future costs paying to the Arizona State Hospital. Now that was important because the EORP rate was going to be floated, which increased your costs by $757,000. And so we were able to secure about 70% relief to the EORP costs that's coming down. What we were not able to secure was specific additional protection that would have held you harmless in that area. And that would have been an additional maybe $200,000. And that ended up on the cutting room floor at the end of the session for various reasons that we can discuss later. So I know you will have to absorb some of that EORP amount, but there was a substantial amount of relief that was provided. What's more, additional to that general fund piece, you will be receiving about $250,000 in new HERF money in fiscal year 19, and that rolls up to $374,000 in the next fiscal year. So a pretty good return coming back to the county this year, except for that component that had to be fixed about the EORP piece, which I know will burden your general fund coffers. This next slide breaks down how all the counties fared, and as I mentioned, it all comes across in how the various cost shifts were aligned. You can see where the zeros are. This is where we were able to get 8 counties and a county hold harmless. So when we net the cost shifts compared to the EORP impact, they had a net 0 situation. We had hoped to get Yuma and Coconino in that, and as I mentioned, we weren't able to secure that. We were only able to get 8 counties in. You do have a few additional budget tools that I want to point out to you. Number one is the flexibility language. So this is the statute that allows you to use any restricted resource in your county to pay any general fund obligation. So that is in statute, and that is a tool that you and your management can use. I also wanted to point out that with the new vehicle license fee, there is a distribution to the counties that's both on the transportation side as well as the general fund side. So while we can't quantify it right now, in about 2 years' time, you're going to see more general fund revenues coming from the vehicle license tax. So that'll mitigate some of these impacts as well. Quick slide that just broke down all of the counties as it relates to the HERF restoration. As I mentioned, in 2020, Yuma will see $374,000 coming into their road coffers. Last slide on the budget is about the structural balance. We watch this because it's kind of an indicator of where we're going in the future. And what you can see is that the out years are projected to be a little tight for various reasons, including their desire to extend an increased pay package for teachers, which was well deserved. And Ms. Pancrazzi, you would have been proud if you saw the thousands of people who were marching down there in red shirts. We thought of you when we were watching them. But we'll have to see what all this means in terms of their structural balance going forward. And hopefully we'll see a strong economy continue, and that'll help strengthen this situation as well. Going on to some of the bills, you know, we did have a package of bills that we took to the legislature that you authorized. This is the list. The only one I want to point to is of the 5 bills that were passed. House Bill 2190 was brought to us by Yuma County related to community improvement districts being able to use WIFA resources. Mr. Mitchell ran that bill and the delegation all supported it. Robin lobbied it, passed out handling. We were grateful to do that for you. The 3 bills that we characterize as budget messaging, these were very helpful at getting us a platform in the Appropriations Committee to talk about the need for financial relief. And there were only 2 bills that we did not get through the process, and SB 1410 related to transient lodging taxation is probably one that some counties will want to bring back in the next year. A big part of what we do at the association is playing defense and just working on bills that we may have concerns with or want to modify. The next few slides have a ton of bills. I'm not going to break them all down for you. A couple of key takeaways. There are, as I mentioned, about 220 bills that passed this year that are related to counties. We're going to have a summary document for you and your management that'll break down all of those bills by policy area. So you'll be able to pass that out to your program area folks for implementation. Some of these bills need to be, I want to make you aware of. We did make some changes to how food trucks are regulated. We worked with the industry to modify the regulatory burden to make sure we can do our job as counties, and they have a little bit more flexibility when they're operating in multiple jurisdictions. We did work on a modification to the benefit, the behavioral health benefit for police and fire as it relates to post-traumatic stress. That took a significant amount of time. And we worked on the special session that was related to opioids, which, as you know, has some county touch points as it relates to provision of naloxone, as well as the drop-off locations, the drug paraphernalia drop-off locations. The pension bills are listed there at the bottom for you, and there were several, as there always are, but there's one that is kind of the capstone of the reform efforts on pensions, and that's the referral to the ballot to change what's called the permanent benefit increase in the CORP system and the EORP system into a COLA. And I know I spoke a lot of code and a lot of acronyms, but it's about creating a sustainable path for the corrections plan, just like we did on the PSPRS plan a few years ago. So hopefully the voters will look fondly on that. Bunch of bills again. The courts were successful at pursuing their Fair Justice Initiative package. We've supported this for 2 years. Last year they failed. This year they passed. Why are we engaged? Because we see the cost of the criminal justice system in the county and in the county general fund. So we have wanted to look for smart ways to get people out of the criminal justice system and back to work. And these are some small reforms that go in that direction. And of the other item bills, there's really just 2 that I want to point to. 1507, the water program amendments. There was no water legislation this year, but we imagine the conversation will continue. I want to tip my hat to you, Senator Otondo, for the conversation you convened on folks at the legislature to talk about water. It's amazing to me that so many lawmakers do not understand something that's so important to all of us, and that's the state water policy. The good senator does, and she convened meetings regularly to talk about that, and thank you very much for that. Probably going to have to keep them going.
I'm going to keep it going.
And Senate Bill 1519, this is related to the school safety issue, where there was a proposal by the governor to have a Title 36 mental health evaluation process that we currently do now, but extend that to folks who might be a threat to the public, and including possibly taking away their weapons. So that has big implementation components for the counties. The bill didn't pass, but it is possible that there may be an ongoing dialogue about bringing that back as well. So these are all the opposed bills that we were concerned with, and the takeaway is simply, we were very grateful that lawmakers killed or amended every bill we had a major problem with. So of the 30 bills that we thought were bad for local operations, they all failed or were favorably amended. And so that was a good result. 2 that I want to bring to your attention: home-based business regulation. I do believe that there'll be an effort to bring back this type of legislation in the future. And I just want to be open about what this is all about. You all have a very flexible ability to deal with your home-based business regulations. And you can balance the interests of homeowners as well as the folks operating out of their homes. This is really a top-down approach that may set an ideological stake in the ground, but doesn't create the opportunity to really meet the needs of communities. And so we were grateful that legislators rejected that. We do expect it to come back. And I wanted to mention Senate Bill 1195 related to mental health screenings. You all have to fund what's called Title 36 mental health evaluations. It's a big deal. It's very expensive. There was an effort this year to completely overhaul the system for a good reason. There's a lot of backlog in the emergency rooms in Maricopa County. And those hospitals want to get those folks moved into treatment. But the solution set was just about creating a one-size-fits-all plan that was not going to work for rural Arizona. So that bill failed as well, but we have pledged to work with the stakeholders to come up with a more workable solution going forward, because I do think they have a problem that needs to be addressed. So just in summary, the results page: $529,000 in net new relief for the county for the general fund, $251,000 for HERF. And as I mentioned, we were successful in our legislative package and including defeating bills. I was very pleased with that. But as you know, as we finish one session, we start the next one. So we are already beginning our summer work plan for next session. And this year, thank you so much for hosting all of the counties for what we call our legislative summit. We will be coming down here in October to set our legislative agenda. and the legislators in this room will be, we hope to have in attendance with us. But I'm really grateful for you all stepping up to do that for us. I think it's going to be a very effective opportunity to set our objective for the next year. And so with that, I just want to thank you again. I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
So you won't sit for any questions?
What's it?
Stand for any questions. Are there any questions or comments? I mean,
Comments, of course,
Yeah.
sure. I just wanted to thank you, Craig. This was a very intense end of the legislative session. Things like the duck pool, we've been chasing it since I've known you, right? A long time, more than a decade. And that you were able to accomplish that in this chaotic session was remarkable. I don't know of anything that the county spends money on that gives a greater return on the investment than our investment in CSA. So you, the folks that work with you, they did a fabulous job. And of course, for our legislative delegation, always return phone calls, texts, emails without fail. And that's greatly appreciated. And thank you for standing firm. And I know you were disappointed that we didn't get the EORP relief, but you did get it for 8 counties. It was incredibly important to at least half of them, critical, in fact. So I appreciate that, that you folks held strong there at the end. I think you did a fabulous job for us again this year, but more so this year than I think any other year. Tremendous successes. So thank you so much.
looking forward to next year when the chairman here will
Yeah,
make sure that
El
we even get a
Presidente.
better result.
El Presidente, yes, yes, yes.
That's kind of,
I don't know about that.
that baseline, it's
You
getting a
did
little
awfully good this
difficult.
year.
Should have waited till next year for that speech.
Yeah, right.
Mr. Chairman, Craig, thank you. Thank you for all you do at the legislature, for all you do for the counties of the state of Arizona. As a legislator, I wasn't really, I knew what you did legislatively, but you do far more than that. And I very, very much appreciate all your advice and all the work that you put in on behalf of the counties. Thank you.
What she actually said was, as a legislator, she didn't know how good you were until now.
Yeah,
That,
really.
She needs you now. She can see you at work now.
You are, yes. There you go. Yes, Tony has a way of putting it, doesn't he? Yes.
Thank you very much. Anything, you guys?
No, just.
He's not asking for a salary increase, so everything is fine.
That's right.
Yeah,
It
well,
goes with
yeah.
you. But just as a final note, I said it earlier, the only way that we're able to represent you is because of the relationship you have with your legislators. So I want to thank all of you for forging those relationships and creating such a great team to represent Yuma up at the legislature. So thank you all.
Well, thanks. Thank you very much, Greg.
Yeah.
This is like a signal where people can stand up and go. Look, I have a couple of public speaker forms that I looked at, and when I looked at them, I for some reason thought they may be budget related, but I want to ask before we move on if Eva Mendez and Gary, no, not Gary, we know what Gary's here. I think it's Jackie. Wait, are you here for a CDBG a related item, or are you just here to speak in a call to the public environment? Because we don't have a CDBG. It says CDBG here, and the other one says county CDBG. So I'm gonna sort of bring you up. I didn't realize you may not be in an item in the agenda. Thanks, Greg. You guys can drive back.
Thank you. Have a safe trip back.
Have a safe travel.
Guys, be careful.
Not you, Tim. You got to stay.
And
I'm just kidding.
congratulations
No,
to
just kidding.
Vanessa, by the way.
I gotta go back to the farm.
Yeah, back to work, huh?
Thank you.
Councilman Reyes and County Board of Supervisors, Jody White with Catholic Community Services Safe House Domestic Violence Shelter. I'm here today just basically to thank you all for the support that you have provided to the shelter. We will be able to do a lot of the needed rehabs with the CDBG county money that you all provided to us. We'll be able to do a lot of the things that we've been needing to do, improve the safety and security of the shelter, replace some flooring. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Well, thank you. You write like a doctor. All you need is the MD. I mean,
Yes, I do.
I couldn't make. I couldn't
All
make
right.
a.
I knew it was me.
I tried. Jody. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Jody.
We appreciate it.
Mr. Chair and
Yeah,
Jody.
sure.
I've visited the Safe House, and what they do for the folks that need their services is amazing. And anything that we can do with the CBG grant
Thank you. Thank you for helping those women and children that need your assistance.
And male victims as well.
And male victims as well. That's
Yes.
true. That's
Okay,
true.
thank you.
Thank you, Jody.
Thank you, Jody.
Eva Mendez? Counts. Eva Mendez counts. I can, this one's easy.
Good morning,
Good
Chairman,
morning.
Good morning.
Vice Chairman, County Administrator, Senator Hurtado. Yes.
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Hernandez. So thank you so much for allowing us to speak today. Obviously, we are here to express our gratitude for choosing Safe House to receive allocations for the CDBG funding. We've been in our building for over 13 years and serving hundreds of people throughout the year. There's a lot of wear and tear in our facility, and it's really awesome to be able to apply for funding that'll help us improve our facilities. A couple of years ago, our advisory board had created a committee, and we started looking at everything that needed to be done. And through other grant opportunities, we've been able to kind of chip away. But with this current allocation that we received from you all for the CDBG funding, we'll be able to do a lot more for the facility, and it's very much needed work. So thank you so much for your support in allowing us to serve the victims of Yuma County.
Thank you, Eva.
Thank you for all the work that you do.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, if any of the special invited guests, I mean, Tim left for, farming, but, Lisa and Charlene are here. Is there anything you'd like to say before we move on, or just the thanks are enough, or what?
You have to go to the podium.
You got to get up.
Here and identify myself.
Yeah.
It's Charlene Fernandez. I just want to thank all 5 of you because I think I've heard from every single one of you. We talked in the parking lot for about an hour and a half one time about county issues, and the others, all have my cell number, and you've just been very forthcoming about any issues that are affecting Yuma County that you think that we need to focus on, be laser focused on. And so I hope we continue that relationship for the next 2 years if things work out well for me in November, and I look forward to working with you, and thank you very much.
Thank
All
you.
right.
And I just want to say a couple words, Senator Lisa Hurtado, LD4. I appreciate all your texts. I get them really
the time.
quite often, and it has been such a crazy session that even as we monitor bills and we go into committees, it's always so helpful to have all your input. And I just can't say how thankful I am for that. Just so you know, too, I will continue my WaterWise Arizona and represent the interests of Yuma County when it comes to water. So we'll be on that, and I just would like to encourage the public to follow along with what goes on, because it is of vital interest to this community that we watch carefully what happens on not only the state level but on the national level with the lower basins. So anyway, thank you so much. And I just also want to say, in the climate at the Capitol, when funding is being cut to the bone, we know how it affects both our cities and our counties. And I just want you to know that you have my support. We see what you go through, and I know it's important for John as well. We'll be working on criminal and justice, the prison reform and criminal justice and a lot of other things. And so just keep the conversation going. And I'm really, really, really honored to work with such a good team in LD4. We've had good people in LD4, and it's an honor to work with Charlene and represent the interests of Yuma County. So,
All right.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I just want to thank you for being so responsive. And it's remarkable. Technology is great. I mean, I'll get a text from the floor. What about this? And so it's remarkable to have that kind of relationship. And you really went to bat for counties. Our delegation did. And so we're so appreciative. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Lisa and
Thank you.
Charlene, thank you. Thank you so much for everything you do for education, for public education, and the way that you fought and continue to fight for the kids in Yuma County and throughout the state for public education. And Lisa, thank you for all your work on water. You prevented, the work that you did helped prevent the sovereign immunity, helped prevent the 100-year water supply being taken off or added, taken off of bills and or of statute. And And I can't thank you enough for all of that work.
All right.
Chill bills.
Chill Bill.
I don't know how the meeting is going to improve after all this thinking around, but thank you very much for being here. We'll go back to the regular schedule of meetings now. Thank you. The first item in the agenda of the presentations, proclamations, and appointment agenda is a presentation of the Yuma County Quarterly Safety Excellence Award by the County Administrator, Susan Thorpe.
Bye, ladies.
Good morning again. Chairman, members of the board, I am very pleased to bring forward the third quarter Safety Excellence Award nominees and winner. This applies from January through March of 2018. The Yuma County Safety Excellence Award recognizes Yuma County employees who consistently promote safety in the workplace. An employee can nominate another county employee for the quarterly or annual award. Nominations are screened for eligibility, and a committee of county staff members selects the award recipient from the eligible nominations. The nominations of the quarterly award are recognized in the UCount News. They receive a certificate of achievement, a safety challenge coin, and a commemorative safety mug. And all nominees are automatically eligible to be selected for the annual Safety Excellence Award in conjunction with our employee appreciation ceremony. And I'm very pleased that today we just happen to have our annual Safety Excellence Award winner for 2017, as well as other nominees from Public Works. So thanks for being here.
There you go, the one in blue.
Yes.
Very good.
He looks like a safety guy.
All that yellow.
Dresses like a safety guy.
So our nominees for this quarter are Barbara Diaz from the Health District and Michael Breeze from the Public Defender's Office. So first I'd like to ask Barbara to come to the podium to be recognized. Barbara is the administrative assistant.
Stay, Barbara. This is your, thousands of people are watching.
Barbara is the administrative assistant for the Health District. She served in her current position for 2 years and has been with Yuma County for almost 5 years. In addition to her regular role, Barbara serves as the Health Department's safety officer. One example of her efforts to improve safety is her work in developing the safety onboarding process for all new Health District employees. She keeps track of all the training that's required each quarter as part of every employee's professional development plan. Barbara actively monitors safety conditions throughout the department, and she ensures communication is continuously effective among employees regarding safety and security throughout the health department. So thank you, Barbara. Next, I'd like to invite Michael Breeze to join me at the podium to be recognized.
I recognize him. I've seen him somewhere.
Michael is our public defender, and he has served in his current position and worked for Yuma County for 12 years. Michael was instrumental in initiating and implementing a safety protocol for all attorneys, both prosecution and defense, in protecting themselves from communicable diseases as they interact with defendants in the county jail. When one attorney was exposed to what's called MRSA, it's a bacteria that causes infections in different parts of the body, Michael immediately worked together with leaders in the Sheriff's Office, Detention Center, County Attorney's Office, Legal Defender, and the Safety Compliance Officer to protect everyone's health. The team developed a notification system that will alert attorneys when a defendant is diagnosed with a communicable disease in a manner that complies both with patient confidentiality and OSHA regulations. Michael turned this effort into a full program including personal protective equipment such as gloves and fitted masks, bloodborne pathogen training, and hepatitis B shots for his employees. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, Michael. Yeah, that's good. You've seen that in a movie somewhere, I'm sure.
Thank you.
All right, so it's always exciting for me to share these nominations. I love hearing about what our employees are doing on a daily basis to make their workplace and public spaces very safe and secure. So I want to encourage everyone who's listening to nominate a deserving fellow employee for this award. Now, I'm pleased to announce that our Safety Excellence Award recipient for the third quarter is Mr. Michael Breeze.
Ooh. It's a pass to the movies.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'd just like to recognize that I appreciate this award, and I think it's a recognition of what all of our employees should have as a commitment to life safety for our other employees. And I think that I hope this recognition will encourage other employees to think the same way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, we got something? For the check? I want it back.
Photo with the check?
Oh, yeah, a picture.
Yes, picture with the check.
I didn't get to sign that check, so I'm not sure.
You're not allowed to the checkbook.
The middle.
Yes.
Always a difficult position with the vice chairman's behind. We'll spend it all in one place.
Yeah.
All right, and that ends the presentation of the Quarterly Safety Excellence Award. So we move on now to a presentation of the County Line by Yuma 77, the Yuma County Government Channel.
2 awards for 2 county agencies from the National Association of Counties. Our Sheriff's Office wants you to have a fun summer, but everyone needs to stay safe on the water. And if you're walking in the foothills and hear some buzzing, it's okay. We'll explain. These stories and more, this is your County Line. Recently, your county government was made aware of 2 awards coming our way. The National Association of Counties, or NACO, will be recognizing the efforts of our Risk Management Office for their program, Addressing Uncertainty, Improving Decision Making, and the Yuma County Library District for the 2017 Hispanic Heritage Month Art Exhibition. This will happen during the 2018 NACO Annual Conference, being held in Nashville this July. Congratulations to Risk Management and the Library District for setting the standard of innovation in Yuma County. It's that time of year when many people get outside to take advantage of the outdoors. It's always a good idea to be safe, and the Yuma County Sheriff's Office wants the public to remember that it's very important when on the area waterways. No matter if you're boating, fishing, or paddling, it's important that everyone is prepared. This includes ensuring everyone has a life jacket, follows the rules of waterways, and of course, never drink and operate a boat.
Biggest thing is stay hydrated, stay alert, know what's going on. If you're operating a boat, make sure you see who's coming, who's going, what's going on. Obey all the waterway laws, no wake areas, and stuff like that. Know what you're doing.
With the Memorial Day weekend ahead, it's important that everyone be safe on the water. Have fun, but remember, always be ready for the unexpected. Pedestrians in the foothills might notice something a little different in the air when walking near some intersections. That's because our Public Works Department has been busy installing accessible pedestrian signals at some locations. These special devices are used to communicate walk and don't walk tones for pedestrians who are blind or have low vision.
The visual impaired pedestrian will recognize a tone on these buttons. They'll hear the tone within 6 to 12 feet. So those are the benefits that it has. Also, the button itself will communicate, let them know exactly what the cross street they're crossing, and also the button itself will vibrate to let them know where they're at.
There are now 2 of these accessible pedestrian signals in the foothills, one at 35th Place and Fortuna Road, and the other is at 40th Street and Foothills Boulevard. The staff at this department ensure your safe passage to and from work. Same goes for your kids going to school. But everyone at our Public Works Department do so much more than maintain roads. Especially this week, National Public Works Week. We take a closer look at what they do and how they will be celebrating.
It's sponsored by the American Public Works Association to highlight the role that public works plays in all our lives and kind of to highlight the public works professionals that are dedicated to making our community better. We've been into several elementary schools now to kind of showcase some of our equipment and what we do. We're going to have a proclamation read by the chairman of the Board of Supervisors on the 21st. And we're going to be hosting an open house here that Thursday as well. Anybody is more than welcome to come on in. We'll have some displays with our equipment, and it's important from the standpoint that what we do impacts their daily lives, whether they realize it or not. Anything from solid waste disposal to patching and repairing roads to transportation planning and trying to improve the quality of life in Yuma County.
You can learn more about the Yuma County Public Works Department by navigating to yumacountyaz.gov. You'll find them under the Government tab.
I'm Elia Juarez, and this is your Library Update. The Yuma County Library District Summer Reading Program is about to start, and this year it's gonna rock. The Library District's Summer Reading Program kicks off on June 2nd and runs through July 14th. This year's theme is Libraries Rock, which means all of our libraries will be doing special music-themed programs throughout the summer. The program is open to all ages. There's a children's level, a teen level, and an adult level, and anyone who wants to participate can. You don't even need to have a library card. And if you do participate, you could win some amazing prizes. For more information on the summer reading program and all of our other great events, make sure to check us out online. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. And of course, our website is yumalibrary.org.
It's time once again to recognize county employees who have helped set the standard for safety in your county government. All employees are eligible to be nominated for the Quarterly Safety Excellence Award. This quarter, the Yuma County Public Defender, Michael Breeze, was chosen. Mr. Breeze was instrumental in initiating and implementing a safety protocol for all attorneys, both prosecution and defense, in protecting themselves from communicable diseases as they interact with clients and defendants in the county jail system. After an attorney was exposed to MRSA, Michael immediately worked with leaders and the safety compliance officer to secure protective equipment for all attorneys, and developed a notification system to alert attorneys without violating confidentiality requirements. It is Michael's leadership that has effectively created the protocol, keeping all attorneys safe while doing their jobs. Congratulations to Michael, and thank you for your hard work and dedication. Before we head out, don't forget that we have a holiday just around the corner. Memorial Day is an American holiday honoring the men and women who died while serving in the U.S. military. Originally known as Decoration Day, it originated in the years following the Civil War and became an official federal holiday in 1971. Memorial Day weekend is upon us, and most of your county offices will be closed Monday, May 28th, in observance of this holiday. All offices will be open again for regular business hours on Tuesday, May 29th. We'd like to thank you for joining us for this County Line. If you'd like to watch past episodes, log on to yumacountyaz.gov/VOD. And don't forget, you can join us live on Facebook. We'll see you next time.
Well, that's, I'm glad that Michael wasn't here to see that. He could have figured out that he was the recipient. It was a little, timing is everything kind of thing. All right. The next item is it's a proclamation. And I'll read a proclamation proclaiming the week of May 20 to 26, 2018 as National Public Works Week. It is a proclamation proclaiming the week of May 20 to 20 through the 26th, 2018 as National Public Works Week. whereas public works employees provide services to our community that are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs, such as streets and highways, solid waste collection and improvement districts. And whereas the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depends on these facilities and services, and whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, are vitally dependent upon the efforts and skills of public work officials, and whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who provide public works services is materially influenced by the people's attitudes and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. That was a twister right there. Jesus. Now, therefore, I, Marco A. Tony Reyes, Chairman of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, hereby proclaim the week of May the 20th to the 26th, 2018, to be the National Public Works Week, and encourage all citizens, businesses, public and private agencies, and media to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works, and to recognize the contributions which public work officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. In witness whereof, I have hereinto set my seal and affixed the official seal of the Board of Supervisors. This is done at Yuma County, the county seat, this 21st day of May 2018. Marco Antonio Reyes, Chairman of the Board. Scott, the floor is yours.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This week's about highlighting the tireless efforts that our public works professionals put in, day out, and their dedication to improving the quality of life in Yuma County. It's their week. They've set up some displays in the lobby, so please stop, take a look, just a little bit about what we do. And as you saw in the video, I would like to invite you and anyone out there from the public that's interested in learning more to our open house this Thursday. You'll be able to see some of our equipment up close, meet the folks that make it all happen, and learn a little bit more about what we do. And we do have some of our frontline staff here today to accept the proclamation. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I do thank you and all the members of the board for your support and recognition in the critical role that our public works employees
And
play.
just in case I missed that, Joshua Scott. I shouldn't have got you. It's difficult which one's your first name and which one's your last name. But it'll work out. We're going to give you this.
Tony leaves the other way.
No, that's okay.
He wants us to stay over in the back.
Yeah. That's what I say. Come on, guys.
Come on, guys.
What are they
Come
showing?
on in here. Hi, Eric.
No, this is not gonna work out. These guys are gonna, we should put it in the back there. They're big. Man, you better be driving some heavy equipment, dude.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. ¿Saben qué? Yeah, you guys take the knee, man, because you're too big to. All right, who's gonna hold this?
You know, one of these is
Josh.
one of my former students.
Come on, come over here. No, you gotta come over here because you gotta hold this thing like this. Give him a pace.
Come on.
That way. Ahora, a ver si ciérrale.
Can you get us off?
That doesn't sound right, but it's okay. She needed a wider lens. Wait, the newspaper's taking a picture. Jesus, you got up too early. Too late now, you missed up the picture. Go. Get up there, Scott. Forget to sign that, Daryl. Forget to sign that. Oh, yeah. Because I saw you missing. Okay. That takes care of the easy part. It only took an hour. All right. We'll then move on to the tough part, the consent calendar.
Bye, guys. Have a
Bye,
good
guys.
day.
Yeah. Keep those streets in good shape.
Yep, that's what we hear about.
The consent calendar. Anyone in the public, in case I missed someone, anyone in the public wants to address the board? Keep it open, but, just in case. All right, then I'll go to the consent calendar. The following items listed under the consent agenda will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion unless a board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent calendar for a separate discussion and action. Any items to be removed?
Mr. Chairman, number 16, please.
Number 16, please. Wow. All right, I'll take number 5. So 5 and 16. Any other items? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve consent calendar as presented without the items 5 and 16.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second to approve the consent calendar, items 1 through 6 through, yeah, it was 17, with the exception of items 5 and 16, which have been pulled. Any discussion on this item? No discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. I'll open up item 5, which is an action to establish voter centers sites for the 2018 primary election of August 28, 2018, and the general election on November 6, 2018, as listed in Exhibit A. I have a couple of questions.
Yes,
There's
Mr.
the
Chairman.
election there. I'm sorry, man. I was looking
That's
at
okay.
legal. We're moving one side in San Luis from the current, what I would call the current location, which was City Hall, to the library.
That's correct.
Right? And I know the reasons why it's been done. In the past, if we had to move a voting location, we had to get a lot of Department of Justice approval. You know, we went through a long process. That is not applicable anymore. Is that correct? You know, we used to like have to send it in and get it approved. And,
Yeah.
And Mr. Chairman, members of the board, right, the pre-clearance requirements originally required by Section 5 states, which Arizona was years ago, have been, on understanding, lifted at this time, so it's not required.
Good, because I remember there was a change sometime back, some years back, but I wasn't too sure because it used to be a big deal if you moved it from one location to another. I can understand why the city doesn't want that mix of traffic and it becomes very difficult. So it's not a problem with the location. Are the library, is the library ready for it though? I mean,
We send out staff to do the pre-clearance for the ADA. Everything is compliance with ADA, and we've discussed it with the library on how we'll make it work. So everything's
Right.
ready. We'll be ready to go.
There are drop-off ballot boxes, both at City Hall and the library. They're gonna remain where they're at.
Mr. Chairman, as far as my understanding is, yes, those will stay the same.
All right, good. There was some confusion during the election last time about those ballot boxes in the city's, you know, utility box. You know, take a look at that. You know, we don't want people dropping off the ballots in utility box. You know, it was easier because the city of San Luis, you know, the ballot situation was in the city of San Luis, so they could actually open it up and see if there was any ballots in there. Let's just make sure that somebody goes out there, okay?
And Mr. Chairman, I do believe on election day that they had closed off the billing box so that there was no way to put in a ballot in
okay.
there. So. But
Right.
yes, I'll have that discussion with the recorder again to ensure that. I think the other aspect of that, which will simplify it, is if you're not having the election there, people wouldn't be tempted to drop them off. Maybe they'd be more tempted to drop them off at the library drop-off
Yeah,
box.
sure.
But yes, thank you.
All right, the other question has to do with mega voting centers and what makes it a mega voting center as opposed to a regular voting center?
Right, yes, Mr. Chairman. Typically what we consider a mega center is where you have more than one vote center. A vote center is the poll books and then the 4 touchscreens per vote center. So that when we have 2 sets of banks of touchscreens in there, then we consider those mega centers.
So they're just larger operations?
Yeah, so it's just actually duplicating the number of touchscreens and poll books that you have on site.
Okay, but the system still allows anyone to vote anywhere as long as they can prove that they're registered voters of the county for a county election. I mean,
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. Yes.
Does it happen for anyone? I mean, can a person from San Luis vote in Somerton or in Yuma for something that's going on in San Luis?
Mr. Chairman, yes, because we'll be able to pull up their ballot style to be able to print them a ballot or to code a card for the touchscreen for that.
Right. So what we've done in the past elections applies, which means you're not, you know, if you're off work in Yuma and it's 5:30, you don't have to, you know, that mash. What is no,
Dash.
Mash. Have a mad dash to San Luis. You can vote anywhere.
But Mr. Chairman, that would apply to all the countywide.
Totally.
Yes, if there's only a city in ballot item or going on or something like that where there'd only be vote centers open, like the city elections, then they wouldn't be able to do that. But yes, for the countywide elections, that's true.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to get that information out. take the opportunity. Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to approve item number 5 as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion and second to approve item number 5 as presented. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
And we're now gonna move on. Oh,
16.
anybody opposed? Okay, fine. Now we're moving to item number 16, which is for Public Works. It's the Board of Supervisors of Yuma County. You did this on purpose, right? I had to read all this. Accept the petition to establish for organization of the Curly Ranch Irrigation Water Delivery District, Units 2 and 3, number 2018-01, under the provisions of Arizona revised statutes. Suspend the proposed district powers and functions of delivering and distributing irrigation water and/or maintaining the ditches, pipelines, and other facilities for irrigation water delivery in the order creating the district. C, to declare the district duly organized pursuant to Arizona revised statutes and finding the petitions to be signed by 100% of the owners of the entire acreage within the proposed district. And D, authorize the chairman to sign the order of establishment of the district as presented. E, establish a new fund number for the irrigation water delivery district and establish budget authority for the district in the amount of $1,650. This is all pending petition number 2017-07. I think that's it. Yeah, well, you asked for it, so.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Rachel?
Yes.
Will these properties, once developed, will they receive irrigation water or not?
They will not.
That's what I thought it said. Now, it's the policy of the board has been that when property develops, it previously had irrigation would be supplied.
That is
Not
correct.
irrigation. What we are requesting that the delivery system for the irrigation system be supplied so that people,
Right, that they're able
yeah.
to get the water.
That is correct. In this case, it is not, Chairman Reyes, members of the board, it is not available to them right now.
So even if they had the
This
delivery
property-
system, they wouldn't be able to get water?
No, sir.
Okay. So there's no need for this.
So there's no delivery system in place for this
Correct.
property
That
today.
is correct. I know that many of you have experienced that same issue, the unavailability of water, but you're still paying for those irrigation charges, so.
They're basically what they're doing is they're dissolving it so they don't have to pay
Right.
for it.
Okay, it's different if it was currently being irrigated, I'd have a problem.
That is correct, yes.
Right, okay.
In this
but
case,
it's
it is not, and they don't have that availability.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you very
That
much.
answer your
You're
question?
very welcome.
Yes, it
I'll
does.
make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve item 16 as presented.
Second.
There's been motion and second to approve item 16 as presented. Any more discussion on this item? No more discussion. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. That takes care of the consent calendar. We're going to go for the items, discussion and action items. And the first one is the Public Health District Services. Overview and discussion on the proposed changes to an environmental health fee schedule. This is an update on the work session item on December 4, 2017. We've forgotten about it, but okay. A PowerPoint presentation is coming. Ooh.
Good morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. This is a continuation from a discussion. Oh, my name is Diana Gomez, Director of Public Health. This is a continuation of discussion that we started back in December, and about 2 meetings ago, I was back kind of to provide an overview of some of our services. I will be going over the direction that I got last time was to focus specifically on the functioning of that program and to withdraw the in-kind grant support because one of the things that I had mentioned before that was that a lot of the services we have are heavily subsidized. The majority of our functions, about 60% are grant funded. And so I went ahead and did that with my team, and so that's the information I'm going to present to you today. And actually I'm joined here by one of our registered sanitarians, Mr. Fernando de Sarden, who I'm going to ask to come closer just in case there's some questions. He's not hiding in the back. Okay, so I always do this. So let me see if I can get back on track. This is our current staffing. We have overall a environmental health supervisor who hopefully that is currently open. It's been open for a while now. We're currently in the recruitment process. The division also consists of 2 vector control specialists. These vector control specialists deal with different vectors that are capable of transmitting disease, most notably mosquitoes. We also have four full-time registered sanitarians. And those sanitarians are hard to recruit positions. We currently have 3 on staff and 1 that we were able to recruit as an underfill, what we call a sanitarian aide, waiting for them to pass their exam so that they hopefully can become a full registered sanitarian. And then we have 2 clerical support specialists. So these staffing levels have been consistent, I think, for the last
Can
20
you
years.
explain what a sanitarian does?
Yes,
Just
so
for the public.
yes, so a registered sanitarian is a public health professional who actually engages in a variety of public health activities. They do what most people, a lot of people call them the food inspectors because they're more notably associated with the food inspections, the restaurant inspections. However, they also assist us with communicable disease investigations when there's a foodborne outbreak. They do plan reviews when there's a new facility opening, and it could be anything. If you're going to serve food, so it could be a cafeteria, it could be a private a restaurant, it could be a public, a grocery store. They do those plan reviews. They respond to multiple public inquiries. If there's an issue with air, water, even though some of those are delegated through our partners, some are delegated to us, but they conduct those activities. They're the boots on the ground. They also provide a lot of public outreach. And a lot of times they assist with exams, whether you want to get your food handler card or your permit. And a lot of the stuff that's difficult to quantify that they actually do is that back and forth engagement when somebody wants to open a business or somebody has a concern or there's a follow-up investigation because we get those reports from people, I saw this or I'm aware there's a problem. And so it's hard to quantify that, but that takes a lot of going back and forth. And there also are liaisons with other regulatory agencies. So that is our staff. So just to give you an idea, like I said, right now we have 3 registered sanitarians and 1 sanitarian aide. So one of the things that we're seeing, which is great for our community, is we're seeing more weekend events, more festivals. So just to give you year to date, starting in July, we've had 36 of those events. And so in those 36 events, we had 357 individual vendors that were selling food at those events. Every one of those had to come in, get some basic education to make sure that they could prepare the food and handle it safely. And then our inspectors actually go on site at the day of the event to make sure that everything's set up. Sometimes they catch problems, like maybe there's not a hand washing station or there's a potential for cross-contamination. They address those issues right before the event is starting to make sure that the vendor has the opportunity to actually remedy those issues. And we stay and make sure that it's functioning properly. They conducted 1,877 individual inspections. So those are food establishments, those are daycare facilities, those are cafeterias, stores. If you process or handle any food items, you will have an inspection. There was also 317 year-to-date inspections that were formally recorded. And those are inspections where people reported a concern either on our online portal or actually went in-house and filed a complaint saying, I need you to look into the situation. And so that could be something that could be remedied in a couple hours, or it could be something that could take a few days to maybe a week, depending on the situation to remedy. Educational outreach just basically reports is formal recorded outreach presentations where they went out and they actually presented to a group or provided some guidance. What our department is moving towards now in order to make the other inspections more efficient is, and Mr. Desjardins has played a key role in this, that's why I wanted him here today with me, is reach out to these organizers, the event organizers, and say, I need you to tell me how many vendors you expect to be there. And please, and sends out all the regulatory material, all the educational material in advance, and has led the team actually in going out there on site and going to some of the other municipalities in San Luis and Somerton where people sometimes work and can't make it to our office by 5 to make sure they facilitate the testing of the food handler's card or get a lot of those things out of the questions out of the way. And so it's been very successful in some of our major events. And then I put other public inquiries. There's no number there just because I didn't have an actual quantify. That's like you pick up the phone and you just transfer it. And we really haven't been doing a good job of recording those, but that's what that refers to. One of the questions that came up was the revenue. sources. And so as you can see, that revenue that you see up there, I started with fiscal year 13-14, and the 17-18 column is the year-to-date tally that we have. Those are revenues from permits, either the restaurant permits or the vendor permits, the different permits that you see on the fee schedule. And then you can see the personnel costs that of our staffing. Our staffing has had the same number of positions. You see that fluctuate only because we've had empty positions, where the rest of the sanitarians kind of have carried on, you know, the workload, but they fluctuated. But if you look at fiscal year 15-16, that is the average. You can see that those are pretty close. Our year-to-date personnel expenditures on the 17-18 are lower. Again, the supervisor position has been open for a couple of months, and we didn't have two registered sanitarians. We lost those positions, those personnel items at the same time. So they were, for a while there, we were functioning with only 2 registered sanitarians. We're working to get back caught up. You could see that our supplies and services are pretty consistent. Again, we had less staffing this year, so that's lower. The capital outlay, you can see in 14-15, that $9,000 was for a fogger, which is what the vector control officers use when they go out and spray for mosquito control. And then 15-16, you see that $48,000, and that is actually, we had one of the trucks that was constantly in the shop, the vector control trucks, and the maintenance was just, it had over 100,000 miles. The maintenance was just not there, and a vehicle for that division as well, where the vehicle was, you know, had over 100,000 miles and was constantly in need of repairs. So the last column that you can see, again, in the parentheses, that is if you remove any additional funding transferred from somewhere else from the district or from grants, that would be the gap that we would need to cover. The bottom is declining food handler permits. You can see that that amount has been going down. And again, when there's a move to aid the efficiency at the process, this is actually partially or mainly due to the availability of online testing. So what you can do now is you can actually take an online test. It doesn't matter which county, and then instead of coming in person. Right now, if you come into our office, you have an ID, we verify that you're there, we monitor when you take the test, we confirm it's you. But now you have the option of doing that online as well. So that affected our revenue a bit. It's convenient, but you can see the impact there.
Hold on.
Yes, sir.
Diana, the online, how do they know that the person taking the test is the person?
You don't. It has to be the requirement by law is that it's an accredited program. So you just have to show a certificate saying that you went to one of the accredited programs that's available online, and you present it, and we have to, all the counties in Arizona have to honor it. So it could be a corporation, it could be, you know, some entrepreneur who decides to start one, gets accredited, and then that revenue doesn't come back to our county, but we're responsible for conducting the regulatory inspections and the technical assistance. There was a reference earlier about the food truck licensing and how that improved. And that also improved the efficiency at the process. Under the new rule now, you can actually, right now you get a permit if you're gonna be in Yuma County, you get the permit here for the food truck and we go inspect you, we meet with you, we make sure you're up to par. Under the new regulation now, you can get it in any county. And then you can come down here now, you don't have to worry about coming in here. That permit, it will be honored across the state, but we will still be tasked with doing the regulatory function and doing the inspection. So sometimes that's the other side of the equation. Sometimes there's efficiency in it, and it's good for business. It promotes, it removes a lot of the red tape. But then at a local level, we are still tasked with ensuring the safety. We will still go out there. Those are our man hours and our time. But it's our duty to protect the community. So that's
don't they have to register at least if they come into a county and or a city to sell?
So we
They have to get a permit.
And we just had that. We just actually had that happen, and so that's the current mechanism. You are correct. For the food trucks, at least, that's going to change. So vendors, individual vendors, so like our vendors that come to the fair will still follow the same process. They pay for that one-day permit. If we have a festival, those people that come in. But for a food truck specifically, if we start, you know, that market, for them specifically, that rule changed. So that's not applicable to them anymore. But that was just for that industry. Everybody else is still subject to the same rules.
All right.
So moving on. So again, this is the staffing we have now, the supervisor that's empty, the 4 sanitarians, and the clerical staff. This is our specific personnel costs. I threw in there the cost of 1 additional registered sanitarian. Our staffing levels have been the same for 20 years, and our community has been growing. The amount of events and facilities has been growing, which is a good thing for our community. The average cost would be, including benefits and all the EREs, would be $78,000. We were looking at the permitting revenue, and given what I just said, we can expect that will decrease, hopefully slowly. And it might be offset by the number of new venues coming in, hopefully. But if the revenue actually stayed consistent, and we did an across-the-board 16% increase, we would expect to generate an additional $52,000 of revenue, which if I showed you in the back slide, doesn't really come close to breaking even, but it would be helpful. And it wouldn't cover the entire cost of the registered sanitarian, but it's inching us closer. The last slide, and I apologize, it's really small, but you can see that 16% is not a significant impact overall. You can see, for example, for our 1 day, where it says 1 day annual, $11, it would go up to $12.76. Those are the vendors that would, that do the 1 day events. And the reason we did that was just because we realized that maybe as an agency, or definitely as an agency, these are things that you're supposed to plan out in advance. We haven't actually addressed a fee increase in at least 15 years. And, Exponent, it's hard to kind of just put it out there and say, this is what would make us be, break even. So that was it was a conservative. I realize it impacts, and it's obviously just to start the dialogue. Those numbers were just inching us closer. But it was just one of those things where it's important to have that conversation. It's important, I think, as a department for us to meet with the public and share what we do and the role we play in actually protecting the health and the safety of the community. So thank you so much for asking about that. But that was kind of the overview that I hope you were looking for. And if not, if you want more detail, this was just meant to keep the dialogue going. I'm happy to go back to the drawing table, come up with more stuff, hang out here.
What's the reason? Oh, okay. What's the reason that you go for this like 2208 and 1328? I mean, I know that it's like a mathematical thing. You multiply times 60%. But why don't you just come up with a fee schedule that is like $192 or 90? I mean, it seems to me like you may be doing this for, I guess, of the people. I mean, I know we have rules that require us not to charge more for our services than it costs us to provide. And that's for the supervisors, the new supervisors. They may not know that. But, that's the statute, that we cannot simply make money, with our services. So I understand that. But in a particular situation like this where you're not even breaking even, I mean, that seems to me a little bit, we go through the process of setting new fees. Is there a particular reason why you stick to like, 1206 or 1239?
Well, I think when they were developed, and again, this has been the fee schedule that has been in place for longer than I can remember, and I know it doesn't help to say that's the way we've always done it. I think when they were done that way, it's the amount of time. The average is like an hour that you and then, for example, if you look at the eating and dining establishments, that's the pink area. You can see that based on occupancy, the fee gets higher. It takes longer sometimes.
No, I do get that. But for example, let's use that. Facility type, it's food processor, it's $165. How are you going to $191.40? I mean, couldn't you just simply say 192 or 195?
Oh, you're saying
I mean, yeah.
I was doing a clean 16% and I didn't round up.
Now, people are going to have to walk in with some change.
40 cents. I'd be happy to round it up to 190 or down to 190.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you'll be happy, but it certainly simplifies it for people who are going to pay a fee.
And to your point, you're correct. I was sticking, my concern was somebody would say that is 16.1%. So for the purpose of transparency, I wanted to make sure it was accurate. But yes.
Yeah, I agree with the chairman. Just round it up.
Okay.
$1 and be done.
Yeah.
Okay.
To me, that's going to keep it more simple. And people can come in with money. I mean, although most people don't carry money anymore, but it could happen. You know, it's just difficult for me to see someone coming in with, you know, $183.15 or something.
Right.
Okay.
And that's the
All
way
right.
it was before. My 16% just kind of threw,
I know.
threw the extra stuff in there.
Most of it was zeros, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll take it in easy. Okay, you go first.
Yes.
Diane, the slide showed the complaint-related inspections. I think it was like 317 of them. Just, I know you can't be precise, but roughly how many of those turn out to be a valid issue?
So I think, Brandon, what would you estimate?
I would go as high as 80%, 85%. Occasionally, we come across someone who got fired, has something to
Sure.
prove. But most of the time, when we get a complaint, even if it's a small issue, when we go to the site,
You know,
and
you're
we
off.
investigate.
You're off camera now. People are gonna say, "Who's doing that?" It sounds like the voice of.
Oh, you want to come up here next to me?
Well, who's he talking to? Who's talking?
So introduce yourself.
There you go.
Hi,
Now
I'm
you're.
Fernando de Sarden. I'm a registered sanitarian too with Yuma County. And as I said before, as high as 85% of all our complaints, I consider them valid. Some of the issues will appear small to a person who does not know the science behind it, but to us, something as simple as a person not washing their hands properly or disposing of trash inappropriately, or a hotel that is not cleaning certain areas correctly, it is a big issue. So all of those, we see them as complaints, but quite often they result in an inspection, because we cannot just go and ask the specific item. We do address the specific item, but we also make sure that anything else that may be related to that item gets addressed during our visit.
So that's a much larger number than I would have suspected. Thank you. Just goes to the point, see something, say something, right?
And and I think that's important. We want those numbers to come up, and with the addition of the online portal and you want to make it easy for people to do that. There are boots in the ground. You saw our staffing level.
Yeah.
And so sometimes people apologize and say, I'm really sorry. And it's like, no, please call us. We can't respond if we don't know.
All right. For that other 15% that, calls in for some other complaint, we don't want those numbers to go up. But the real complaints, we want the numbers.
Right, yeah.
All right.
Not if you're
Thank
upset.
I know what you
Thank
mean
you.
about somebody
Any
being
other question?
fired.
Yeah,
Any other question?
I have a question.
Hold on.
Yes.
Obviously, chairman's gonna say, well, here we go again,
No,
going back.
here we go again.
But, you said 15 years, you haven't raised the
Right.
fees. I mean, and then all of a sudden, it's, boom, we want to raise them. I mean, this is something that should have been done.
You're right.
And it's, I mean,
It's fine. It's fine.
it's the truth.
It's
I
the
mean,
truth.
we cannot wait,
But-
so many years, and then all of a sudden, just want to raise them. It's a fee that's gonna pass on to the consumer.
Yes, we
and
can.
Out of all the vendors, individual vendors, how many would you say that actually pay?
Oh,
So that was another important thing. I think our compliance numbers actually are pretty close to 100 now, or if not 100. That wasn't always the case. And so to your point, about 2 years ago, we started that process of making sure, and we have a paper-based system. And so you're right, it takes strategic planning to be able, it's not right to just impose the fee, but we wanted to make sure that we were there, that we didn't have people that weren't paying their fees before we came to you. We wanted to make sure we exhausted all options and we had that picture. So yes, right now we have 100% compliance. We might have a few stragglers, and it was a hard 2 years for people when we kind of came back and said, we noticed, but again, it's
I just want to defend ourselves by saying that a 1% increase every year is pretty dumb. So we just got, look, 16% in 15 years is not a major increase. It's pretty much a decent increase, just to defend ourselves. And for a while there, I mean, obviously we recognized that people were going through a recession. For the last 8 to 10 years, we've been very careful not to raise any fees that didn't need to be raised. And up until this point, when you're coming up and saying, look, we're running this situation, I mean, you could have come back 5 years ago. I mean, you could have come to us 5 years ago, and you could have, and we might have said, look, it's not worth it, 5% or 10%, it's not worth it. But again, it's part of that communication process, and I guess now that we're trying to, run, the situation as close as we can to it paying itself, it makes sense for us now to look at that situation and say, hey, you know, it's time we look at those fees before it gets really bad, because I know that what Supervisor Porches are referring to has more to do and a lot to do with the fact that, you know, water increases, garbage increases, sewer increases. They always give you heartburn when you wait too long, and then you assess it to be, you know, you assess an increase on people that is 5% or 10% of $100 or whatever it is, and you know, it hits everybody individually very, very hard. And I get where he's coming from. I used to, you know, I think the same way. So just keep it in mind that if you want to make these changes, do not wait 15 years. You know, let's maybe do it every 5 years or something, so that we don't end up with higher increases that may be a little difficult to swallow.
Right, and we agree, and thank you for that feedback. And we didn't come to you, so it wasn't like we came and it was declined. We never gave you the opportunity to look at that, so that's what we're trying to do now.
This is what you should have, and that way we can blame the board if they said no.
Now I know.
You still blame the board. You can still blame the board.
No. It's strategically, it's the agency's responsibility to come back and say, this is where we're at. And we were in that position. So, yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
You know, and I'll tell you what, in your defense, the message from us was always, you know, deal with it the best way you can. And sometimes that meant that if you had a vacancy, you know, you actually didn't, you know, you had enough money to cover operations, so you didn't feel like, okay, well, we're running a deficit, so we're going to go back to the board. You know, we had a tendency to do a lot of that, reversion type situations, where we budgeted for all these positions, and if one didn't happen, we sort of ask you, okay, well, you know, work that into your deficit situation, so you run the operations without asking us for an increase. And in some ways, that's a little backwards, but we used to do that. In your defense, we used to do a lot of reversions, and we used to think of them as an everyday thing, or, you know, as a normal thing during the budget process. It's something we're trying to get away from now, that in the past helped to mask some of these needs in some of these departments.
And, you know, and just to add to that, and Diana, I think I talked to you about the outreach. It makes a huge difference, but also what makes a huge difference is who does it and how they do it, because when you get someone there that and just very rude to the people that actually are gonna want to pay, they want to comply. But if someone there is just rude, they won't even contact the health department. They'll just say, well, why deal with them? And that's when we get into the situations that people won't pay, and then you're kind of dealing with them after the fact and trying to make them pay, and it creates something that it shouldn't have been, you know, done since the first place. And I'll say, not just because he's in front of us, but I said it before, Fernando has worked with the Tamale Festival crew for a long time, and it's a pleasure, what I've heard from them, that working with him. And I think that's the kind of people we want. And I've told you before, another employee that didn't do that, and I heard it right away. I told Susan, that's what we don't need. And I think that message needs to be sent to those employees, that when they treat the customers, they're the ones that are paying for our salaries. So we just to keep that in mind.
Customer service, always.
Right.
Sure. You mentioned this, but I didn't want it to slide or be overlooked by the board and the public. You did a great job of making sure that you picked up in compliance, instead of just increasing fees and then finding out, well, if everybody paid, we might be making a little bit of money, which would be illegal, basically. And so I wanted to point that out, that you went about things the right way over the last several years, and making sure that you had full compliance, then evaluated where we were, and then brought it back to the board. So I didn't want that to be missed. And then I can tell you, if you'd brought a fee increase up 4 or 5 years ago, I'm pretty sure the board would have said no. So
not the new board, the old board.
Thank you.
It's okay. We just want to have the dialogue, and I think it's just important to have these conversations. So thank you for entertaining.
All right, well, it's been entertaining.
Entertain.
Okay, what's actually needed? Yeah, what is the next what do we need to do now? Is this an action item for us to make
It
a
will come
decision?
back to you for officially adoption with the fee schedule rounded to the dollar, so it's
Right.
easier for people.
Right, then you get a chance to round them up.
Mm-hmm. Please.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you so
Very
much.
informative presentation. Thank you. Item number 2, we're going to move because I don't think we need to deal with that, right? And if we had to, we need to deal with it after the executive session. So, item number 3 is update and discussion regarding testing on the inner improvements at 197 South Main Street. How this became a report every 2 weeks, okay, but
I'm
you
glad.
get it. This is the final? Yeah,
Chairman Reyes,
that's what I
members of
heard
the
all the
board.
time. Yeah, this is the final one.
Dave Hillen, Director of Facilities Management. Yes, this should be the final update with this project. And we have mostly good news to wrap up this project with. As far as an update goes, the last item on the list was the replacement of the sidewalk on the south side of the building. That is still underway. We had a bit of a delay while we were waiting for some materials to arrive. They're in, and you'll notice that they're laying rebar today. There will be an inspection on that, and concrete will be poured later this week. And by the end of the week, all work will be wrapped up. 2 weeks ago when I was here, I talked a little bit about the CO2 level, which was the one remaining area of concern in the building on the 3rd floor. We did find an outdoor air damper that was not functioning properly. Since then, we've been back and have pulled an additional 10 samples with a handheld device as well as a wall-mounted sensor, and we're trending at least 200 parts per million underneath that top limit. So we're well within the safe zone for CO2 there. So across the building, everything is operating as it should, and we have a clean and healthy building as far as air quality goes once again. So then the last item is just a quick overview for your information as far as the budget, which is the next slide. Oh, I guess I have that.
PowerPoint presentation.
So as you recall, back at the beginning of this, we requested a budget of 170. If you look at the bottom line, the budget was $170,700, split across these, 6 areas, and then the 2 alternates, the sidewalk and the AC unit. So final numbers as it comes together come out at 162, 129, which means we're about $8,500 under budget all across the board. So I'm happy to answer any questions about any details on those items or anything else about the project, but that should be the final standing here.
All right.
Mr.
Well,
Chairman?
sure, Supervisor Banker.
Thank you, Director. I went and toured the building after our last meeting, and it is in much better shape. There's less complaints, and thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for all the extra work.
We feel good about it. We think that we learned a lot through the process and think that some definite improvements were made.
Well, if you feel good and the people across the street feel good, then we all do good. Okay, thank you.
Thanks
It's
for
good.
keeping it under budget.
Yeah. Right. Okay, the next item is, the next items are a bunch of items. But I was right when I said it was a special session. For some reason, I read it somewhere. So, it's just a budget session, right? But it is a special session when it involves, what we mostly, what most of our job is entitled to. I mean, not entitled, but most of our job it's about. So this will be one item. It's section off in 3 different actions, but we're now meeting as the Board of Supervisors and all special taxing districts, and this is discussion and action on the Yuma County fiscal year 2018-2019 tentative budget as follows, which is 1, to provide direction to staff regarding the revisions to the 2018-2019 recommended budget subsequent to department budget hearings, which were held throughout the month, to adopt the tentative budget for fiscal year 2018-2019, and to set the date and time for a combined public hearing on 2018-2019 tentative budget and truth in taxation, which is the property tax levy, as Monday, June 18, 2018 at 9 a.m. And let me begin by, again, thanking the budget review team and the administration staff for making this a very, very smooth process so far. Hope we don't mess it up here at the end, but it's been smooth, and for being so sensitive to the requests and comments and directions given to us, to you. Now we'll take a look at what we ended up with, and I will remind everyone that once we approve the tentative budget, it means that the cap has been set, basically, that there could still be changes within the budget. There could be things moved back, moved from one place to another, but that this will set the cap. of what we will have as a budget for next year, for this year, next year. Sure. Supervisor.
County Administrator Thorpe and I had a conversation. I apparently did not bring up something I should have in the previous budget meeting.
Too late.
So if you, maybe, and so if you would, Susan, just let me know when the appropriate time is to discuss that, okay? Thank you very much.
Susan, let me know before you let him know so that, you know. All right, who's gonna take this, Jim?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the handout that you have is a list of all the changes from recommended to the tentative budget, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have on those items.
I might just give.
All right, go ahead.
I might just give an overview of this is
Yeah.
a lot of technical adjustments to the budget so that we make sure that the budget that you are adopting is as accurate and finite as possible. There are a lot of moving parts every day to our budget. There are people who are getting promoted. There are people who are leaving, and then the salary changes for the vacant position, and then people select different coverage for their either themselves or their family. And so there's a constant changing among all of our line items that the budget team is trying to stay up with at the same time that they're developing next year's budget. So we want to try to make sure that next year's budget is as accurate as possible. And so you'll see a lot of these technical corrections, numbers going up and numbers going down in small increments, and that's what that is reflective of, just so you'll know what that is.
All right, do you have a slide that basically shows the total?
Yes. So if you don't have any questions about the handout, which is all the little
I don't, it's too
technical-
technical for me.
Just have a comment. This is the greatest detail we've ever seen.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I was gonna say. The comment is, you know, I think you're just trying to overwhelm us with the info. But, you know, let's look at the bottom line here.
That being said, we'll go to the interactive spreadsheet that Gil Villegas has put together with all these latest updates.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is the summary. This is the spreadsheet that we've been working on the last couple of weeks. For our last conversation after the departmental budget hearings, the property tax rate, it was agreed, the direction given to us was the current rate plus the 1.44 cents increase.
What?
What?
I'm sorry, yeah, it was the current rate that we have right now. The
Oh, well, you're talking
2.50.
about the
change from the
county's
recommended
tax rate.
to the tentative.
That's just the counties, right? It does not have the other changes to the other ones, right? That makes it all one single rate.
No, Mr. Chairman, this is
This
for
is
the
just
general.
the general fund.
Correct.
Yeah. This is the general fund rate, okay?
So the summary includes all the detail that you have. And if we go to the bottom line, I don't know if there's any need for me to explain again what we're adding to the tentative, the EOR, the additional 1%.
You know, when I looked at that presentation that CSA gave, and they showed a $500-some thousand change. Why do we show it as, we show it as 700,000 because we're already planning to spend 200 and some odd thousand? But it turned out to be, or is that $700,000 actually
This is the
difference?
actual amount for EOR. What he was trying to show is the net impact. So he was subtracting out other items that we got relief on.
On that
Remember,
particular item?
On the CSA presentation, he was
Yeah,
subtracting
I know, but I
out.
mean, on that particular item or in the overall picture?
He did not show EOR being less than, he showed EOR for 757,000, which is what
Yeah.
it is.
Right. On his presentation.
Let's see, impact, baseline above relief, Yuma, 520. Fiscal year 19 above baseline relief, $528,000. Fiscal 19 or 757. The
Look
net
down here.
impact, according to him, is
Look at-
228,300.
Remember, that was because we had one-time relief on the ADJC. It's not ongoing relief.
It's on the screen. Line
Oh, it's on.
77.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, all right. Okay, I see. All right, I got it now. Yeah. He used.
So after all the changes have been implemented, we're looking at the bottom line number on fund balance. The recommended fund balance called for $14.7 million, 17.33 of expenditures and transfers out. With the current changes that we have implemented in adjustments, the fund balance goes down to $14,636,156 or 17%. If it desired the board to go back to the recommended fund balance, it would require another $136,000, which equates to 1.17 cents to the current tax rate.
Okay.
So that's the current situation based on all these
And
technical.
this is taking care of all the
corrections.
all the reversions that we
Yes.
used to have in the past.
Right, the reversion, yes.
Would you go back up, Gil? A little bit more? More up to the 80 KC there. Are we still showing that as a $345,000 expenditure?
That is correct, and the reason why we're doing that is based on past practice. We believe the state's still gonna require us to make the payment, but eventually they're gonna refund it us. So I have shown that revenue, and I apologize that I didn't open,
You've shown it as an expense and as a revenue.
and as a revenue, so it's an offset.
Got it.
But
Okay.
since I think we're gonna be required to make the payment, we wanna have the budget authority there.
Okay, thank you.
Well, back up a little bit. Back up a little bit. The same spot you were. Pilt. We put in the $3,520,000 in there as a revenue? Is that what you did?
Yeah.
Right? And did we offset it anywhere else?
No, we're counting on that revenue. We're
No,
not-
the revenue, but I mean, are
That's
we?
the revenue.
Yeah, I know. So are we just allocating a line item in the reserves as dedicated towards supplementing this? Is that what we're doing?
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. For our last conversation,
So
we
it gives us
earmarked fund balance for a third
Yeah, there you go.
of
Felt
the
reserve.
the $3.5 million.
You
See,
still have a
that,
concern
that's a
about
little,
doing
yeah, I mean, no, I'm not, I don't, I have the concern that it may be seen as us basically working our way out of needing the money, basically. But at the end of the day, I think it's better to be prepared than it is to just simply assume it's going to be there, because in reality, it will still remain in the reserves. So we will just simply say, we have a budget, we have budget authority to use it if we need to, instead of just simply saying, we're gonna take it out of the reserves. But I mean, it's still in the reserves. My problem is it's lumped together with like BOS contingency, which we do intend to use. And that to me maybe should have been a separate line item where we say, okay, we're gonna use it, because if it's part of the reserves, the contingency, that means we're gonna be eating into the reserves every time we use that contingency money. And I didn't think of it that way until now. But you have it as part of that $14 million, and we look at that as a budget line item we're gonna use, not leave in the reserve.
This is treating it the same way that you've treated it in the past, as part of reserves.
Yeah.
It's always been that way.
Yeah, it's always been that way. See, I've only been here 20 years.
I wasn't gonna point that out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's because it's contingency. I mean, you would think, well, okay, it was in the reserves, but I mean, I didn't never look at it that way. I looked at it as a budget item that we probably more than likely intended to use somewhere.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I know that in this current year, you had identified contingency, $500,000 contingency, as you have in the past. And at the time, we talked about setting aside a line item for economic development. At the time this year, the board said, no, let's just use contingency if we need to. Going into next year, you actually, in the budget expenditures themselves, there's $100,000 for economic development. So you wouldn't go to contingency for that amount. So that's already embedded in the budget if you're interested in that. So it's less likely that you would go to contingency. You wouldn't for that particular.
Yeah, well, you see, that's my problem right there. I always think of reserves as reserves. The reserves to me normally mean that you won't use them, unless something really major happens. And you do have a contingency line, but to me, that shouldn't be part of the reserve. It should be a separate line item. But I mean, it's too late in the process. Yeah, we can look at that next year, because there's a difference between, what you may think you may need kind of thing, and the difference is, and the other side of that, which is, I think we'll use that. And that should be a line item, an expense line item that shouldn't impact the reserve. Because if you do have 17% reserve, but you have line items in there that you may use, I don't know, it gives me the wrong sense of what a reserve should be to me. I mean, even if we had a line item that says emergency contingency, whatever, that would be a line item that you expect to somehow or other use if you have an emergency. This is a little bit different than I had it in my mind.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out for the public, I know you didn't mean to misspeak, but we only used 3,500 over the entire past year.
I know.
You said something about we plan to spend that. I just didn't want
Well,
to have
we had,
the
remember,
false assumption that the board has $500,000 to play with.
well, when you
That's
start
missing
saying
there.
that you're going to
Because I don't
use,
think we used much the year before.
well, this
And
year we
so
talked about
this year we
using
did a
that
whole
as economic
3,500
development.
Out of 500,000.
But this year we talked about using that as an economic development fund if we needed it. So that means to me, hey, we're talking about economic development in an executive session a few minutes from now. So, you know, the likelihood, but again, this isn't a big deal. I mean, the money's there and it's set aside for whatever. I mean, let me just go back a little bit and talk about a little history about the reserves. And that is that we used to run the county on a warrant system, which was to me, you know, that we didn't have enough money until those big chunks of money came in May and November or something. We used to run it in a warrant system, 15, 12, you know, maybe before you got here. We used to have a warrant system, and we decided, okay, let's build up the reserves, you know, so we have enough cash not to borrow money to pay bills. So we now have, I think, enough cash. The problem is, if, as the county grows and the expenses are bigger, we may end up in a situation where if we don't watch the reserves, the fund balance, the reserves, we may end up in a situation where we have a cash flow crunch that will require for us to set a backup plan to cover cash flow. And as the county gets bigger, it becomes more and more of a possibility. So we need to keep that reserve balance high enough.
What's the number that we should keep it?
I asked that question 20 times, I think, in the 20 years that I've been here.
It's between 15 and 20.
Between 15 and 20.
And then we can, you know,
17 is
start from there,
comfortable.
and anything above that should be, you know, reserved for other things.
There's a recommendation on how much you should.
Yeah.
15 to 20.
Yeah.
I've asked that question. We went up as high as 22, 23 at one point in time, and I said, I think that's pretty high. And then we've been below the 15 threshold, and we thought that's too low. So we're in an area that I feel comfortable with after, you know, again, going up and down. I just didn't think that we had, you know, I can't, maybe I never focused on the fact that your reserves had a specific designation to be used for, type thing. I mean, and right now I'm noticing that we have the contingency amount, it's in the reserve, and I never really, that really didn't connect. I mean, it connects now. Anyway, that's it. Move on, because if not.
So, just to confirm, you do want us to identify the reserve for future PILT and actually list it that way, or do you prefer not to list it that way?
Well,
because you've gone kind of back and forth during the course of the budget discussions.
That's what I was asking, if you were still comfortable.
Yeah, I don't see any difference whether we do it or I mean, I don't see any difference, meaning in the bottom line. I'd like to think that part of us being responsible and part of us understanding what the game is in Washington, D.C., that we'd be ready to deal with it if we needed to. But I probably would be, I believe that we would be one of the very few counties that even set aside money for that. But then again, we don't mind being one of the few counties that gets prepared for, for emergencies and stuff like that. We've always done it. I think I know that Supervisor Porcias may not realize that, but you know, over the last 18 years when I've been here, this is one of those counties that's been looked at as having a very good financial system.
We'll just fire, how many, 60, 70 employees? We'll manage.
Definitely.
No, we need that.
Yeah.
That's called attrition. Anyway, go.
So, at this point, let's look at the debt service, which is under transfers out for debt service. This is the 5.11 million, as you see there in that line item on line 105. And at this point, I wanted to give Supervisor McLeod the opportunity to talk about an issue that he had brought up initially with regard to the completion of 197 South Main across the street, finishing out that building. And Supervisor McLeod wanted to talk about something related to that.
Move on.
Yeah, I apologize to the board. I failed to bring up in our last meeting, we were talking about CIP, the fact that I would like for us to include when we complete 197 Main, the parking lot behind it that our employees and our customers use, and improve that parking lot and bring it up to a good standard. Right now, it's rough, uneven. I think that would be something that we were contributing to the wear and tear that we produce downtown, and providing a good surface for our employees and our customers to walk on when they're coming back and forth to the building.
And I'd be looking forward to seeing it next year, coupled with the idea of putting in shade that would be like sun, solar and solar. You know, that would be a nice project for a capital improvement project. I don't think we're going to be able to do it this year, but next year I think we may be looking at, you know, I hate to do all this investment at the same time, but it may be, that may be a better idea than to split it into two, because you know, if we're gonna do parking lot improvements, we may be able to do something to make it, you know, sustain it till we do a real good, you know, overall planned parking.
Dig it up and do the whole thing over
Do the whole
again.
thing. Maybe we can work it out with APS or something. They have pretty good programs for solar. It'd be nice to power up that building with, you know, with solar, at least portion of it.
Yeah, the shade's not designed, I don't think, for that. You'd have to redo the shade too.
Well,
which
I
would be
mean,
a significant.
the airport did it. Most of the school districts do it. I don't see any reason why we couldn't look at it. You know, not this year though.
Well, what about putting in for, that be part of the bid for redoing that building, to do that parking lot at the same time? It would look.
Just so you know, for
much better.
information purposes, we got a couple of estimates on the parking lot, would have to be completely redone. It's in bad shape. So it's with contingencies, about $105,000 to do the parking lot behind 197 South Main. So what I had asked Gil, I don't know why I have such a problem with Gil Viegas' name. Okay, Gil, to look at if we added that to the CIP, what would that actually translate into on the debt service? And so I guess the debt service would go up by $12,600 in order to do the $105,000 as part of the debt. And then that would translate into a slightly more on the tax rate as well, which then you could offset with, again, with flood control, should you choose to do that.
That's what I would like to do. I don't want to see the rate go up.
Yeah, well, we obviously
It's very small overall. I'd like to see that happen, adjust the flood control to match.
You know what he's asking for, right? He's asking us to tap into the flood control rate for an additional,
Well,
whatever.
if we're gonna do it, we
$12,000.
might as well do it with, when they, you know. If we can do it and get it all done in one shot, as far as the building. and the
Just
parking.
to make sure that you understand, I will support that, but that's it.
Well, then there's also the.
No.
No, that was it.
So we would add 1.28 to the general fund and then subtract it from.
Yes, we do. The idea is that we'll keep the tax rate, the combined tax rate, the same as we have it now. So whatever we have to do internally.
That would get us back to 17.33, which was our goal in the first place. So
I don't know how that ever turns out that way, but you guys.
it's our best estimate. So.
How would that get us back to 17?
Because you add to the tentative budget now.
So what, Mr. Chairman, what we'll be doing is increasing the current tax rate for another 1.2.
No.
Yeah, no. He's talking about the general. He's going to take that from
the general, okay.
from the flood control. Yeah, I had the same reaction at the beginning. He's talking about increasing that general fund tax rate and decreasing the flood control rate by the equal amount to keep those tax rates the same as last year.
A rounding figure that I have here, $194. So with the additional 1.28 cents to the tax rate, the
Don't say
new
that, you see.
general fund tax rate would be 2.5288. That would be in the enough revenue to bring our fund balance to 17.15.
But you're going to lower the flood control rate by the same amount, right?
That is correct.
But those two are separate. That's how it impacts there. Okay.
But the total would.
So do you have the tax rate or ratepayer spreadsheet.
Would be increasing the county general fund tax rate, decreasing the flood control district tax rate to a combined tax rate of 3.6844, which is the same that we currently have, providing that there is no assessed value increase, then will be no impact to the taxpayer.
All right, well, that was the key. All right, so, yeah, it's fine.
We need to get consensus on the board, that's a.
We don't need to, I'll make the decision. No, guys, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, guys. I just try to, drive the supervisor Porteous here saying, you know what, that may have been the case in the past, but not now. I wasn't even the chair. A point of levity. Are we okay with that?
I'm good with it.
You good with it? You
I'm
okay?
good.
You good with it, Lynn?
I am.
All right, so there is consensus to move on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Provided direction. So section A is complete. You've provided direction to staff regarding revisions. And then B is to adopt the tentative budget.
All right, before we go on,
Putting the
and I
changes
do want to
identified.
be reminded, there was a message back there, somebody waving, thing. I have a speaker form. I was going to wait until most of the budget was discussed before, I had him come up, but maybe he wants to say something before we go on. Gary, you want to say something before we move on? Before, sure, then come up. Put the timer at 1 minute. Just kidding, Gary, you take your time.
Okay. I'm Gary Wright, been a resident in this community for a long time. Everybody knows me, and privileged to speak in front of the supervisors and then also being privileged. County governments across the state have a really serious challenges, and it's not just with the workforce, and it's regardless of the population size, regardless of the budgets that you're talking about, and or the geographical location, the workforce is a major portion of your budget. And I have three concerns, and I look at them as the 3 R's, and that's retention, recruitment, and retirement. And that's a challenge. Every county is going to be facing that challenge. And looking at those areas, let's say just on the retention part of it, you got a moving budget all the time because you got vacancies and numbers are changing and so forth within the budget year, or even at the period of time when you have the adoption of the budget. But the numbers are moving, and it's hard to really nail down what's going on. But at a previous meeting that I came to, I addressed concerns about the across-the-board salary increase, and that is part of your budget. And I expressed some concerns, and is your salary increase targeting the hard-to-fill positions, whether it's public safety or hard-line positions that require skills and so forth? And are the salary increases you're looking at equitable for all employees? So with those concerns, and then is your salary increases targeting those employees that have been in your organization for several years? And that to me is employee loyalty. So I speak to, from time to time, employees in the county, and let's take, for example, law enforcement. You get some vacancies and someone comes in, a new person that comes in, if they're new, are going to be really close to the person who's been working in law enforcement as patrol officer for 5-7 years. So I feel like across-the-board salary increases like slurring a road. And you put slurry over a road, but are you solving the problems underneath? And the problems underneath is recruitment, retirement, and retention. And a lot of counties are looking at creative ways in which to, on their workforce, in which to keep those employees, and they also prepare for the future on retirement. So that's my concern. So I think, you know, just across the board things, I like the Board of Supervisors to look at that, and not only this budget year, but and then look at what we can do down the road. And some creative ways would be, like some other, they have STEP programs and for employees, and benefit those people that give loyalty to the organizations and been here for a while. And also look at that. I know budgets are a hard time and so forth, but the biggest, you know, concern, yes, water, but workforce, and when you have to do without certain people with certain skill levels, and if someone leaves or retires or because of health reasons, you got to fill that position, you got to fill the gap, and you got to go out there in the marketplace and find them. And I would like to see our community, our county, to be the most competitive county to bring in the best workforce. And as a resident and as a taxpayer, I think that we get the most use out of our money that we budget for all those things, especially the workforce for Yuma County. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gary. Just before you leave, I do want to bring in a couple of things as response to your concerns. First of all, you know, you've been here during some of the budget hearings, and you probably, you know, if you have some free time, probably followed us on some sort of media platform. But just in case you didn't, the discussion here that we're having in a tentative budget is to decide the size of the increase, right? So, and we have, I think, come to a consensus that it'd be a 2%. Now, what happens after that is that there's a decision that the board would make on how to split that up. And the ideas that I've heard is that we may want to go for a 1% increase to everybody, and then work that the other 1%, the amount of that, or the 1%, into some sort of pay for performance objective that we feel may be able to deal with, you know, rewarding those employees who do more, who do better, and who we want to retain. And the third thing is that we did conduct some sort of a market study that will help us at least deal with some of those positions that are competitive out in the market, that we may lose people simply because we're not competitive. And last year, I think we went into a process of upgrading the pay scales of the corrections officers. And, you know, in other words, we have been doing this for like 2 or 3 years now.
Yes.
You know, the new board members have had everything to do with this. We've never done it before. I'm just kidding.
It takes about 10, 15 years.
It takes about 10 years to get to a point where we do. No, but what I guess the bottom line is that we are cognizant of the fact that we do need to address pay raises in more ways than just simply increasing the pay. We are also concerned with the cost of health care, and that sometimes it seems to us like we were given a 1 or 2% increase, and we were increasing the healthcare cost by 5 or 10%, and it would be just eating up the increase. So we're really sensitive to those issues. I think that the whole board is sensitive to those issues. So rest assured that we will take your comments into consideration when we go through the process of determining how we're going to do that 2%.
And then,
And I have a comment with that 2%.
Okay.
That 1% that we're talking about pay for performance, we're looking at making sure that it's objective and not subjective, so that if we do go that way, that there are objectives that those folks have met, that instead of making it, you know, a subjective
preferential
depending.
sort of.
Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead.
In addition, I know it's hard, you know, when you're not watching all the board meetings to kind of keep up, but there are a good number of programs that the county has in place for retention, not the least of which is tuition reimbursement, a wellness program. I might do to someday maybe get a report from Human Resources on. There's a pretty good list. If they were to list all of the things that they're doing, there's a number of initiatives, and most of them have worked very well.
And
Chairman mentioned we had, I don't want to use the word crisis, but it was a severe issue with retention in the law enforcement arena. And think the board spent about $1 million
Yeah.
to address that issue. I mean, it was
A
painful.
couple years ago.
Yeah, a number of years ago, and, but it was successfully addressed. And
Before the new board members came.
Sheriff reported recently that they are fully staffed, and that's the first time
Years.
in my memory.
Years.
So
I'll bring that
those
up.
things, just for your, for you and the public to know that many of the things that you brought up have been well addressed. So thank you.
All right, Gary, thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate it.
And on the flip side, also, on the
Oh, I shouldn't have gotten into this. I knew better. Go ahead, Gary.
No, go ahead.
Go.
Okay,
The flip
just-
side.
And it's not all about salaries, it's also about non-monetary things that you can offer the employees that you mentioned for retention. And couple those two things together that, like I said, we can make Yuma County a place to come for employment. And we can be very competitive against the other, not only counties, but that private sector as well.
Thank you, Gary. All right, are there any new information that we need to be aware of before we approve the tentative budget? Any changes, anything else? Guys, do you have any questions before we go ahead and move forward?
Do we need to address the 1-and-1 now, or is
No,
that
I
something
think
can address
we're
later?
approving the tentative budget. Before we approve the final one, we have plenty of time to get an explanation of what that would mean in terms of.
Right, we'll have some options for you, but ultimately the board will need to
Yeah,
decide.
no, this
which
is
direction.
just.
We don't have to do that today, then.
But soon.
Okay, so what we need to do here is to provide direction, which we have, to adopt the tentative budget and then set a time for a combined public hearing, correct?
Adopt the tentative
Yeah,
budget with
adopt the
all the
tentative budget.
changes, with all the changes.
With all the
that we're
changes
talking
discussed
about
before.
today.
All right, is there anything else? Okay, so I'll let.
I appreciate the board, taking
Yeah.
up the parking lot issue.
Oh, that will, yeah.
I apologize.
That will
not
cost you
doing
later.
it earlier. Yeah.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to adopt the tentative budget for fiscal year 2018, 2019. Is there a motion? So there's a motion here, with the modifications
With
as
the
discussed
modifications.
before. Is there a
Mhm.
second?
Second.
Motion and second to adopt the tentative budget for fiscal year 2018, 2019. It is relevant to mention that the tax rate, the overall tax rate for the taxpayers will not be changed. Right. Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All those against, same? No? Motion carries. Right now, we need to set the date and time for a combined public hearing on 2018, 2019. We think that the Monday, June 18 at 9 a.m. date will be plenty of time to get ready for that. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
So
June
moved.
18? June 18? Is there a second?
So moved.
Okay, there's been a motion by Supervisor McLeod, a second by Supervisor Pancrase to set the tentative, to set the date for the tentative budget and truth and taxation hearing for Monday, June 18, 2018 at 9 a.m. Is there any discussion on this item? Not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposes? Motion carries. That takes care of that tentative budget agenda, and we're gonna go, I guess, back to regular session. And we have a planning and zoning agenda with full legal description of the property size. I did it when we started, but yes, just before the budget team leaves. Thank you, Mr. Flory. That's okay, yeah. Mr. Flory, we wanna make sure you get additional thanks for making this process for you and your team. Additional thank you.
Thank you.
And, something will come forth as to be presented to you later on.
Yes, thank you, guys.
Yeah, tin cup.
Something. All right, now we're gonna move on to the planning and zoning
Tin
agenda. And this full legal description of property sites for all rezoning cases are available for public review at the Yuma County Board of Supervisors office. The first ones are rezoning or reversion hearings. In accordance with the section of the Yuma County zoning ordinance, the board will conduct a hearing to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule of development, determine compliance with the schedule for development, or cause the property to revert to its former zoning classification in the following cases. Case number 1, development services, rezoning case number 0646 in accordance with section 404.0117 of the Yuma County zoning ordinance, action to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development of casa property to revert to its former RA10 zoning classification. This is all part of Assessor's Parcel 724-11-002 located in the northeast corner of the alignment of Avenue 4.5E and County 12.5 Street, Yuma, Arizona.
Good,
Thank you, Chairman Reyes,
Breath
members of the
control.
board.
All right.
Juan Leal Rubio, Senior Planner with the Planning and Zoning Division. This case was approved by the board back on November 20th, 2005, subject to a schedule for development. The deadline to comply with that schedule for development was November 20th, 2011. As of today, the schedule for development has not been complied with. The owner has not contacted staff, and the board has two options: grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, or revert the zoning to its original RA10 zoning classification. Staff is recommending that the board revert this case back to the zoning back to the RA10 zoning district.
Question, do we have to conduct a public hearing? I mean, we've done this plenty, but do we have to conduct a public hearing?
Chairman Reyes, I believe you do.
All right, then I'm gonna open it to the public. Is there anyone here in the public that wants to address this issue with the board? If not, I'm turning it back over to the board. Any comments or questions? If not, I entertain a motion to either revert or give them an extension of time.
Mr. Chairman, on rezoning case number 06-46, I move that we revert the zoning to its original RA10.
Second.
Motion and second to revert the case to its original zoning. Any more discussion? If no more discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries, and we'll go to item number 2, which is rezoning case number 0650, which in accordance with the same section of the Yuma County zoning ordinance, action to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development or cause the property to revert to its former SSB-5 zoning classification on assessor's parcel number 186-28-006, located at the southeast corner of Avenue 36E in County 8 3/4 Street, Welton, Arizona.
Thank you, Chairman Reyes. Again, Juan Leal Rubio, Senior Planner with the Planning and Zoning Division. This case was approved by the board back on November 20th, 2006, subject to a schedule for development. The deadline to comply with the schedule for development was January 20th, 2012. The schedule for development has not been complied as of today, and the owner has not contacted staff. The board, again, has two options: grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, or revert the zoning back to the SSB-5 zoning district. Staff is recommending that the board revert this back to the SSB-5 zoning district.
I'll open up the public, I'll open up the hearing to the public, to conduct a public hearing. Anybody here in the public that wants to address the board on this issue? Nobody here in the public wants to address the board on this issue. I'll turn it back over to the board for their decision.
I'll make a motion that we change rezoning case number 06-50, revert it back to its SSB-5 zoning classification.
There a second? Motion and second to revert the zoning of 0650 to its original zoning classification. Any discussion on this item? No discussion on the item. All those in favor of the item signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. We move on to item number 3, which is Development Service Planning Zoning Division rezoning case number 05-106 in accordance with section 404-01, I guess parentheses I, and said parenthesis 7 of the Yuma County zoning ordinance. Is an action to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development or cause the property to revert to its former rural area 10-acre minimum zoning classification on assessor's parcel number 2213-06-002, formerly 101-07-018, located on Avenue 4.5E between County 16th Street and County 16.5 Street. You're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fernando Villegas, Senior Planner. This rezoning case was approved by the board on April 3rd, 2006, changing 87.5 gross acres from RA10 to SSB2. The board granted an extension of time of 5 years to comply on January 18, 2012. The deadline to comply with the schedule for development was January 18, 2017. The property remains under the same ownership and under in the same condition.
Have they been contacted? Is there any response?
No, the property has not contacted staff. We sent certified letters and a regular mail letter to inform the applicant. And the board has the option to grant an extension or to revert the zoning back to RA10. And staff recommends reversion to RA10.
I'm going to open this to the public for a public hearing on this particular item. Anyone in the public wants to address the board, this is the time. It's now or never. All right, well, never, maybe not that. All right, it's now or never on this particular issue. Nobody, we'll move it back to the board for their discussion and action. Any board members willing to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to, on case number 05-106, to revert to zoning to the original R8 110.
There's been a motion to revert this case and a second to revert this case to its original zoning designation. Any discussion on the item? There's no discussion on the item. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Motion carries. That takes care of item number 3. Item number 4 is rezoning case 0660, which is in accordance with the section of the Yuma County zoning ordinance. There will be action to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development or to cause the property to revert to its former low-density residential 20,000 square feet minimum, R110, or an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development should be granted. One of the two. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, this rezoning case was approved by the board on May 21st, 2007, changing this parcel 1,440 square foot from R120 to R18. The deadline to comply with the schedule for development was May 21st, 2009. The property remains under the same ownership. We did send letters to the property owner. We got no response from the property owner. The board has the option to grant an extension or revert the property back to R120. Staff recommends the board to revert the zoning to the original zoning district, R120.
Before we move on, there's a question. Basically, how many lots would that have created?
2 lots, Mr. Chairman.
2 lots?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, it wasn't too big. I failed to understand how someone just didn't do whatever they needed to do. It was very simple. But anyway, I'll open this to the public. Is there anyone here in the public that wants to address the board on this particular matter? If not, I'll return it back to the board for their decision.
Mr. Chairman, I move that rezoning case number 0660 revert back to its R120 status.
Second.
Been a motion and second to revert this particular zoning parcel back to its original zoning. Is there any discussion on this matter? If none, all those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. And we'll move on to item number 5, which is another Development Services Planning and Zoning Division case, rezoning case number 0718, in accordance with the same section of the Yuma County zoning ordinance that gives us the authority to do what we're doing. Action to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development or cause the property to revert to its former rural area 10-acre minimum, or grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development if it should be granted.
Mr. Chairman, for this case, the owner requested staff to revert the zoning back to RA10. He sent us an email requesting the reversion. This case was rezoned back in August 6, 2007, changing the parcel from RA10 to light industrial 2-acre minimum. And the board granted an extension of time to comply, and it seems that the owner doesn't want to comply with the conditions, so he wants a reversion, and the staff agrees or recommends
right
to revert.
I'll open up this hearing to the public. Is there anyone in the public that wants to address the board on this particular item? There is, that when that camera points to the public, there's no public, people probably think, what? But, there's no public here to address this, so I'm going to revert it back to the Board of Supervisors for their action on this item.
Mr. Chairman, rezoning case number 0718, I move that we revert it back to RA10 to its original rural 10.
Right, there's been a motion and a second to revert this zoning case back to its original designation. Any discussion on the item? No discussion on the item. Oh, I already did it, right? I already did, yeah, I'm moving too fast. I mean, you know, I just want to make sure I had the public hearing already. All right, so, you know, is there any discussion on this item? No discussion on this item? All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. That takes care of all the, you know, reversion cases. And we will move on to events calendars and current events, so that then after that, we'll move on to the executive session. Okay? That way we can dispense with the whole meeting and maybe just get it done over there, okay? The item here is the event calendar and current events. Board members and county administrators will report and may discuss events attended or to be attended on behalf of the county. It may present a brief summary of current events and may update the schedule for future board of supervisors meeting as appropriate. No legal action will be taken pursuant to Arizona Revised Statutes 38-431.02K. All right, you begin,
I
Supervisor Pancrase.
I attended the first annual International Peace Conference. It has to do with the SHINE program through the Housing Department. It was at the Boys and Girls Club, and it was amazing. It was really, it's all directed at kids and keeping them active and busy after school, and it was very good program. I attended the North Star board meeting. I attended the dedication of the new classrooms for the U of A. If you haven't seen it, it's on 24th Street, right across from the entrance to AWC, and it has a huge A on it. The president came down, and Tanya Hodges, thank you for making this program. They have under four divisions of majors that you can get your degree in, and under those are subtitles of different programs that are offered, that you can stay right here, go through the 2+2 program, AWC, and then U of A, and get your degree. It's a wonderful program, and it allows kids building our workforce. I spoke at the Yuma Catholic FFA banquet. I attended my Yuma Crossing Heritage Area meeting, and I was in Phoenix on Friday and attended the Agribusiness and Water Council annual meeting.
All right, Supervisor McLeod.
Yes.
Top that one.
I cannot. In fact, I realized that I did not properly save my notes that I made, and so the stuff I did for the last 2 weeks isn't there. But I will say that I did attend a CSA meeting, and also was very busy this month with completing the Flynn Brown, and what a fabulous program. I recommend it to anybody who has an interest in learning a lot more about state government and agencies and how they function. It was an amazing program. I'm very privileged to have been able to go through it and successfully graduate. We had a great group put together a presentation. It was very well received and may result in some possible legislation next year. So that's what I can remember off the cuff. There was a couple other things.
Mr. Simmons.
Hopefully somebody will mention one. I'll remember.
See, held another one of my community meetings in the foothills, which had a pretty good attendance for May. I figured it'd be kind of low, but had about 30 or so people there for the meeting. Attended the FFA banquet for Antelope High School as well, and their Antelope Spring Sports Awards. And then last week I was out of town, and I just like to remind everybody too, a lot of graduations this week, plus Memorial Day weekend, so everybody be safe with the parties and all the traffic that's out there, and that's about it.
All right.
I attended the importance of voting put on by the county recorder and elections department to the Somerton Middle School, and they're actually conducting elections for student council, and they put both of them, those two departments put on an excellent exercise for voting. It was great to watch. I was excited, kind of teaching our youth the importance of voting. So I want to thank Paul for inviting me. That was great. And if they do it within one of your districts, I would encourage you to attend.
Okay.
And also, one more thing, you know, I attended a meeting of the census this past weekend.
Oh, uh-huh.
And it really concerned me that the census will not be sending out any information to PO boxes. So any Somerton, San Luis, which is the
Welton?
100% Welton, 100% PO boxes will not get any information. So that just it doesn't make sense. But
that coupled with the fact that maybe asking for your citizenship status is going to make it, you know, it's really going to be another issue out there.
Major.
Have they gone to PO boxes in the past?
Yes, that's all you can get in San Luis, Arizona. There is no home delivery. So.
Yeah, but they go door to door, don't they?
No, this year they're trying to cut back. So it's they're gonna wait till the last minute if they don't get something from that address. So it might not.
Selective.
It might not get everybody.
If you send out to those addresses, they're gonna get a lot of return mail,
Yeah.
because I've done that before, where you send it to the address and all of it comes back because they only have the PO boxes. So they'll be doing a lot of walking door to door with all the addresses that
But
they
not
don't
with
get.
a lot of time, because that's gonna be the last resort. They're gonna wait.
That really is going to hurt the state and the county and the city for funding.
rural areas, it's
Because,
gonna-
you know, a lot of funding and a lot of grants are based off of
Population.
a population count, yeah.
So that's something that's gonna hurt the cities and also the county. So it's something I think we really.
We need to get a, you know, I think we,
start doing something.
Paul, didn't we name, Paul, didn't we have someone named to sort of connect with the census people? Didn't I appoint someone?
Yeah, that's Craig Sellers.
Craig Sellers.
And you actually, I think, considered or you will be considering a complete count resolution or proclamation to urge that all residents.
Well, we need to get
are-
in touch with Craig and make him understand that we need to aggressively make it a point to the census people that not doing anything by PO box, it's not gonna work in places like San Luis and Somerton at all. That they may be overwhelmed at the end trying to get the
They
information.
need to do it now.
Yeah, they need to change that for places like that.
Well,
Yes?
Dayton
Is
and
it, we're taking too
Gatineau?
much? We're
They
talking
can
too much about a
hide
single
everything
item? All right, well, we can't discuss this item any further, so, okay, is that it? Okay, then I'm moving on. Yeah, well, it's okay. He just wants to go to lunch. We're moving on to my report. Actually, I was in DC 3 days last week, and I thought I was in Washington State because it rained all 3 days that I was there. It was like weird because they themselves admit that it doesn't rain continually for 3 days, and even in Washington DC. But I think it also rained in the parade of the Farm Bill, which was supposed to be passed, that week. I was really interested in that. It's one of the reasons why I was there. It was the Farm Bill. There was so many things in there that impact this area, from rural development to, well, I mean, we're a farming community. The Farm Bill is a big deal, and we were there to take a look at the process and try to make sure there were some things in there that impact Yuma County that got approved. It was not a very productive trip, but it's still taken. We also, the supervisor Porches and I attended the Arizona Border Coalition meeting in Tucson, a week ago, or a little over a week ago. And, it was unfortunately, that's where we found out that Mr. Brooks, William Brooks, had passed. And I mean, some of you had an opportunity to meet Mr. Brooks. He was from Somerton. He eventually made it to the Tucson Sector Chief of Operations, which is pretty big, and it was something important. It was unfortunate that he worked his way up there to a point where he could have an impact in this whole area, and didn't have much time to accomplish that. He was in his 60s, mid-60s, so tough to see him go. And I think I have a couple of things, but it's my birthday. I'm supposed to blow this up for some reason, so it's done.
Happy birthday!
Thank you, everybody. I expect the gift to come flowing later on. But, right now in the meeting, you don't have to do that. Anyway, I think that's it, and we will now recess to executive. Hey, wait a minute. Go ahead, Tom.
I
Susan.
just want to say happy birthday, Chairman.
Oh, that's it. You haven't done anything all week, huh?
I was
No,
out
there
of
was a
town.
busy
Yeah.
day.
Oh, that was a
I was out of town for my granddaughter's college graduation, so I'm a young grandmother, let's put it that way.
Well, if you think so, we'll, you know, it's good.
I say that too.
All right, all right. Anything else before we go into executive session? Do I have to entertain a motion to go into executive session?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, if you could also adjourn the regular session.
Really? We don't have to
Don't
go
have to
back
come
to
back
regular
down. That
session?
way you won't have to.
All right, then I am hereby adjourning our regular session meeting and, going to a special executive session meeting. Okay?